It's too quiet. You guys need to talk. See Christmas music or something. Oh, I would serve drinks if that was allowed. They get real Western in here though. But I do have Mountain Dew. If you guys need a Dr. Pepper or Mountain Dew, need that drink.
No one else pregame?
What's it do? Just remember, everyone, as we're talking, unfortunately, these UFO speakers pick up everything you say. So just know your side conversations aren't side conversations. Everyone on YouTube can hear you. So just letting you know.
One way to get on the public record.
Hey,
Printed.
good.
Yes, should be good. I know, that's what I said. You're starting to get a little rowdy before you walk in. Well, Natasha will be here too. Yeah, you're there. No, what? Hi. So you're gonna have to call Anthony. If you call me, I have to put you on speaker.
There's none on the
Then what?
itinerary.
Oh, can you go put some then? Yes, I can hear you.
Please mute the meeting until you start. If we can hear you on.
Northeast Region, are you ready to begin?
Yes, ma'am. We're ready.
We're live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I'd like to welcome everyone to the Northeastern Regional Advisory Council meeting. My name is Eric Major, and I'm the vice chair. We'll excuse Grizz O'Lean tonight. Not sure where he's having fun at, but he's not here. I'll go ahead and read an opening statement.
Talk loud.
I'll try to talk loud too. So This meeting is being held in person in the Bernal Division of Wildlife Resources office, as well as being streamed live on YouTube. This public forum allows you to express your opinions and ideas on wildlife management in our state. This RAC considers your feedback on the proposals before us today and reports them to the Wildlife Board. The Wildlife Board, not the RAC, is charged with setting wildlife policy for our state. Wildlife management is complex and sometimes it's emotionally charged. We all have ideas and opinions about what is best for Utah's wildlife. It's why we're here today, and that's a good thing. We encourage those who want to express their opinion at today's meeting to fill out a comment card. We expect those in attendance to respect people who speak, especially those who hold views that don't align with their own. Respectful behavior helps facilitate efficient meetings where RAC members can listen, digest, and address concerns, ideas, and proposals being presented for consideration. Disrespectful behavior, including yelling, cheering, or laughing while someone is speaking. You can also help maintain a respectful stance of space by referring to people by name instead of descriptors of their physical characteristics, demeanor, or gender. If this behavior occurs, the RAC chair will remind attendees to be respectful. If the behavior continues, the individual or individuals will be asked to leave. Lastly, please help reduce distractions during the meeting by putting your phone on silent. And if you need to take the call, we ask that you step outside. All right, we'll go ahead and make some introductions. Also, like to welcome Randy Durst from the Wildlife Board here present, and all of you are attending tonight. Thanks to start down the end. Let's go ahead.
I am Jordan McMahon, representative for the BLM.
Mark China with non-consumptive users.
Rebecca Jones, non-consumptive users.
Jake Cougar, sportsman.
Eric Major.
Richard Bueller, public at large.
Nathan Frankel, public at large.
And Natasha Haddon, U.S. Forest Service.
Okay. We'll go ahead and start down on the agenda then. Second item is approval of agenda from the past November. Is there any discussion or questions on the minutes agenda for the last one? Now we'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
That was Jay Cougar. Second.
Jake Cougar, second. Thank you. Motion or hand raise. Everyone agree? Passes unanimously. Go to the third item in the Wildlife Board meeting update. I'll do my best to summarize it. It was a long meeting, and thank you for those that they're attending and working through it. Randy, if I say anything wrong, just holler as well. So their meeting is held December 12th in Farmington. First action item, just like ours, was approval of the agenda. That was approved. Minutes were approved as well for the September board meeting. The first action item was the statewide mule deer plan for 2025 and 2030. There's a motion that was made and passed 3-2 to moving the division would adjust permit numbers 20% without going through the public process. There was another motion made on that item to accept the remainder of the division statewide mule deer plan as presented, and that passed 4-1. The fourth item was mule deer hunt structure research proposal and rule R657-5. There were several motions on this item. One of the first ones failed, but the motion was to approve the point restrictions on Pine Valley with the exception that youth hunters be included in that restriction, and that failed 2-3. Another motion was made to approve the point restrictions on Pine Valley as presented, and that also failed 2-3. And another motion was made to accept the weapons restrictions as presented by the division, and that one passed unanimously. Another motion in that item was to approve the remainder of the proposal with the exception of the antler point restriction proposal as presented, and that also passed unanimously. The fifth item was the Buck and Bull 2025 to 2027 hunt tables and dates. There was a motion to pass unanimously to move the Ponsegont. The proposal was accepted on the Ponsegont to overlap management, premium archery, also overlapping the management muzzleloader and premium muzzleloader, and keeping the cactus and premium any legal weapon overlap November 1st through the 20th. That was passed unanimously, and then there's a section in our region about the 3 corners that was broken out. It was also passed unanimously. That was a motion that the 3 corners out season structure be the same time frame and structure as adding an early any legal weapon rifle hunt and adjusting the muzzleloader seat. Another one on the Fillmore Oak Creek. There was a motion to accept the remainder of the recommendations as presented with the exclusion of Fillmore Oak Creek not having the early any legal weapon hunt. And that passed unanimously. Once in a lifetime agenda item for 2025, 2027 hunt tables and dates. There was a motion to ask the division work on the difference of understanding with state parks. If there are only 2 tags for sheep or deer, that they alternate between who goes first, auction versus public. Also, the division can work on a deal for the split of the sale of the conservation permit. That was passed unanimously. There's also a motion to give the division authority to turn on and off hunts for non-residents. For example, if there's a die-off or other significant changes, and that passed unanimously. And then a motion to ask state parks to provide an audit of the funds from the sale of the island's conservation permits. Also passed unanimously. Motion to accept the revised dates for the public draw once in a lifetime and limited once in a lifetime and approve all others as presented. And note there the Pine Valley, Beaver Dam, and Pine Valley, Virgin River end dates were incorrectly presented. 2026, 2025, December 25th, 2026, and December 31st, 2025. Another motion to ask the division starting in 2026 to look at moving the conservation season dates in line with the public dates and to take the proposal through the process. Asked and placed in action on. There. Item number 7 was the R657-62 amendments. That was the general season dedicated hunter application to youth allocations. There was a motion made to reject the division's proposal to give 20 first time youth hunter starting draw. Passed 4-1. Then motion to accept the remainder of the division's proposal as presented passed unanimously. The number 8 item, CWMU renewals, CWMU, the public land and our association renewals. That one was made, the motion was made to accept the division's proposals as presented with the exception of allowing JB Ranch to enroll in the CWMU program. That passed unanimously. On the subject of Antelope Island conservation permits, there was a motion made to approve the division's proposal to add the Antelope Island conservation permit to the 3-year cycle, and that passed unanimously as well. The residency amendments are R657-5 and R657-62 was moved to accept the rule amendments as presented and directed by statute, and that passed unanimously as well. So I think that's it. Anything else in this? Stop. We'll go ahead and turn the time over to Miles Hamburg for the regional update. Okay.
Hi, I'm Miles Hamburg. I'm the regional supervisor here for the DWR Northeastern region. I'll go over a few things that have been going on late this fall and a few upcoming things as well. So there's our aquatic section. Just this week, Brian Engelbert is our new assistant aquatic manager up at Flaming Gorge in Green River. Brian replaces Brian Mosley, who is actually transferred down to the region here as an assistant habitat manager. So We'll be looking to refill Brian Engelbert's position here soon. He has been a Colorado River Cutthroat biologist, largely working on that. So we'll be trying to get that filled shortly. Just upcoming, the Bourbon Bash at the Flaming Gorge Reservoir is coming up on January 24th to 26th. So you can register or get more info at the bourbonbash.com or participate in that. Should have lots of prizes and prize money and things this year, like they normally do.
Keep going on.
Okay.
No, you're fine. I'm just gonna mess with something.
The Mac Attack is another contest up at Flame Gorge. Ran out of Buckboard Marina in Wyoming. That'll be February 15th, 16th, and 17th this year. And so that's another opportunity for to get out and do some tournament fishing up there. One of the things about the Mac Attack this year is that you guys may have remembered the regulations for small lake trout up at Flame Gorge changed beginning the first of the year. On Utah, they've already changed to Wyoming where it's unlimited small lake trout under 25 inches. So anyhow, the idea is really to try to reduce those numbers and kind of get the predator-prey balance back in place at the Flame Gorge. So those are some opportunities that are coming up for those that like the ice fish. So just report there's good ice available in mid to upper elevation reservoirs right now. Fishing reports been really pretty good for the diamonds on the mountain lakes and where if I'm it's all been good. The lower elevation reservoirs been pretty limited to ice or no ice in most places. So hopefully it'll get a little bit colder, but Flaming Gorge, there's good ice up the Flaming Gorge, or the Firebowl in Wyoming, but the rest of the lake is still wide open. So just a reminder to folks that no ice should ever be considered safe. I want to use caution from going out ice. Just a quick update on habitat section of the WRI. Those projects this year, this fiscal year, which will end at the end of June 2025, we're planning on having implemented over 22,000 acres of upland restoration. Most of that, well, it's a variety of things, any removal, seeding, and other types of enhancement work going on to accomplish that. Be just under 3,000 acres of riparian work that you targeted as well, and then 55 miles of stream work that'll be targeted just in this region. So a lot of work going on there. It keeps our folks very, very busy, and a lot of good things are accomplished for a lot of like the WRI process and that projects. The next one. Yeah, our wildlife folks, our fall capture season is now complete. Captured deer on the north slope, south slope, hook-cliffs, and natural units. Also captured and collared 2 bighorn sheep out in the hook-cliffs, and then captured some additional pronghorn over on natural as well. We'll have captures coming up in January. There'll be bison captured out the hook-cliffs, and then we should actually still catch the deer in the spring just to assess body conditions. So far this year, fawn weights have been at least average to above average, so it should result in good fawn survival this year if we don't get too much of a heavy winter. But right now, things are looking good and looking favorable from the capture. So just finishing up and starting to process data on our fall classification. So far, the doe fawn ratios are looking pretty good. We had a good favorable summer, good moisture, so good production. So a lot of places have good numbers of fawns. So a lot of twins out there seems like. I think I even heard the reporting. Anyhow, that's we get good years. Deer can produce a lot of babies. So hopefully it cooperate this winter and gets good survival. Just finished bighorn sheep surveys in the Flaming Gorge this week. At the North Slope, we classified 131 bighorns. That's an increased count that we've had the last couple of years, so that's good. And seen a lot of good sheep, and the lamb ratio up there looked really good as well. So that's good when we can see lots of lambs, and hopefully result in an increased population. We're starting a lot of our elk surveys. Elk popper surveys beginning in February, and then also just say that do rose fish trapping and tagging. These fishes, a lot of them come out of Canada. Some of them come out from really high elevations, like if you met this case of black rosy finches, but we tag those with electronic tag that you can pick up at different feeders, place feeders. Ryan Maxfield, our biologist that oversees that, reported that someone in New Mexico actually taken a picture of a rosy finch with the color tag that we use here. I think that's the only place that they're used. So that rosy finch would have traveled over 400 miles since being back here. So pretty interesting information. And then some additional black-footed ferrets were released this fall in the Coyote Basin. So a lot of work going on there, and it's going to continue to be busy as we move into the year. So.
Sorry, this is how it's gonna have to be for a minute. I'll have to see for this angle.
Okay, and law enforcement has been doing a lot of work this year. There's a lot of trespass, illegal baiting, and lost trail cameras violations that continues to be an issue that our officers are addressing and working on. So, in addition, with our canine officer and as well as some other technology utilizing drones and other things, we're able to fix cases this year on trespassing charges and other coaching as well. So, releasing cases that we in prosecution on that pretty soon. And then we also had some high grading cases this year on some limited entry units where people had shot and left an animal that posted with it. So anyhow, it's good to get some of those cases taken care of and see how those go through the prosecution process. Beginning the 1st of January 1, the law enforcement section will become part of the division of law enforcement under DNR. So, but we're not expecting any changes to happen here in the region or at the field level. So, in terms of how we interact, how we do business, but our own section January 1st. Okay, the wildlife events, we had over 20 people participate on the annual Christmas bird count RA. Lots of birds this year with sandhill cranes. Waterfowl numbers in the basin right now are very, very high. It's a good opportunity to see a lot of those birds. And then as well as other smaller birds and things as well. The winter conditions have been light enough that a lot of them are still hanging around. So that's interesting. Then we'll have planning a youth ice fishing tournament starting to occur on January 18th. If the ice gets good enough, it's not looking great right now. The backup date starting February 1st. So anyhow, a lot can happen in a short time if it gets cold. But right now it's awfully warm for ice fishing, but we'll see where it goes. And for my update.
Okay, the usual, item number 5, that would be the waterfowl recommendation for 5.7. For Jason Dillon.
Good evening. Good to be back.
And we'll start out with questions from the RAC. The RAC questions on the waterfowl.
One question, just in your presentation, when you're talking about sandhill range or areas, I know you mentioned Gwinnett County. I thought a few years ago they proposed some of the Fishing County and the basin area. Is that still the case, or is it still combined?
It's Gwinnett County.
I looked at my planner today, and I know what it's Fishing County. So is that a change that's taking place, or that? I know they extended that training several years ago into Fishing County.
Yeah, I don't have the, whatever is on Hunt Planner is what it is currently.
Okay, so it's Uinta Basin area, not Uinta County.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, there's 320 day segments in the basin.
Okay, I just want to make sure that wasn't being changed from full fishing that and just And just one more question, maybe, on your dark goose season, what, how do you determine what areas that you shut down after the open? Shut that
So when Blair was waterfowl coordinator, he did a lot of surveys to kind of decide what the public would want. Then that has to actually go through the planning process. And you have to develop that in the frameworks. So right now we work within the framework, so we have the different goose zones. If we want to change a goose zone, we kind of have to approach the flyway with some reasoning why we want to do that. And then have to go through the recommendation process. So I think it was back in the last RAC cycle in 2017, most of the goose zones were established, and Blair had done public surveys on the Wasatch and the northern zones before he took it out to the flyway. And that's kind of how that works. You take that through the flyway process, and if you get votes, that could be established in the hunting frameworks.
How often do they look at that? Is that something that's looked at regularly or just?
I mean, I don't think I would look at changing those zones right now unless I had a lot of public input about the zones, which I haven't. I think I've worked quite well. I mean, I've only had one comment about any of the zones since I've been in the waterfowl coordinator position. So we've kind of designed them around where we think we can harvest more geese. So we'll shut them down and then we'll extend them later. The idea always being up on the Wasatch Front, for instance, geese are always coming back out to defend their nesting territory. So if things start melting a little early, we can shoot more geese. And that was why we established those goose zones originally. And then Blair had gone through the whole process of public outreach to see how people felt about it. Then we took it to the flyway and established in our frameworks. To make any changes in those, we have to take those back to the frameworks and you have to kind of go with some evidence to present to the committees, where you basically get voted down. That's kind of how the process.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the RAC?
I got a question. Curious your thoughts on what effect, if any, this combination will have on non-toxic shot requirements.
You mean my bringing the guidebooks, the game birds in with?
Yeah, like if we're reclassifying, away from waterfowl, do you think that in any way that would encourage people to not use non-toxic shot when they're hunting
No.
waterfowl?
I think I mentioned that in my presentation. I think that could be an issue. But I think it's something that we can handle through outreach and through law enforcement. And really bringing the guidebooks together was a project we took on because I think it makes things, simplifies regulations for people. I think that's a good thing to do. And those birds are all managed under the federal frameworks. So I don't think it's going to be a big issue. I think we can manage it. We already have folks coming on our waterfowl areas to shoot pen raised pheasants. And they can't use lead shot for those. And we're either using outreach or we've got a law enforcement folks on it. So I don't think it's going to be an issue.
Any other questions? Any questions from the public?
Okay, we only have one person responding on this. They strongly, well, sorry, we have two people. One strongly agreed and one neutral. And there was just one comment left, and they were just advocating for more ADA accessible hunting permits.
Any public comments on this one? We will take some RAC discussion and. I was getting something with me. It does read like you went through county. That might be just something to change check before you went to basin on those.
Okay.
Any other comments on the side?
I'll make a motion for wildlife or the waterfowl information as presented.
Take their name when you do it.
Motion's been made by Jake Huber to accept the waterfowl recommendations as presented. For a second.
Dr. Hadding, I second that motion.
Those in favor? Unanimous, thank you. All right, we'll keep Jason up here for item number 6, falconry reporting requirement recommendation. Anything else you add or summarize?
No, I can provide some clarity if folks aren't familiar with the reporting process, but I don't have anything.
Any questions from the RAC on this topic?
It's around, it ebbs and flows, but it's between 220 and 230.
I would love to see him taking down a sandhill crane myself.
Yeah, we worked with the Utah Falconers Association on this. I think I was supporting some situation. It's just makes reporting easier for falconers and reduces unnecessary.
Any other questions from RAC? Any questions from the public on the side? So guys,
Just one response, one person thing will be neutral.
any public comments on this item? Move to RAC discussion.
Sasha Haddon, I make a motion to accept the falconry reporting requirements.
Second.
I'll second that. Jake Huber.
Call for a vote. Raise a hand. Yeah, so well.
Thank you.
Coming up.
Ray, what's the comment on black bears? Cards up here.
Welcome Darren. Boys. Item number 7, Utah Black Bear Management Plan Revision, Equal Art 657-30.
Evening, everybody. I one clarification, just to clarify something, a typo that's in the packet. For the Nebo unit, table show 26 total permits. Another table will show 36, and that number should be 36. I think the correct number. The chart that shows the breakdown was correct. It's just that when we set that up, the formulas won't talk to each other. So. Other than that, I'm sure we'll have a good discussion tonight, so take any questions.
Start with questions from the RAC and then we'll get to questions from the questions.
Can Darren share can you share?
Yeah, we need to share.
What would you like him to share?
Just whatever we're talking about.
Oh, okay. Well, there's not a presentation at the moment, but if there's anything.
Did you need a chart or something?
Well, I just heard you talking about numbers, and over here it's not very loud, and so I was just wondering.
Oh,
if we could
sorry.
Get them on the screen.
Yeah, that was in the RAC materials, but so I don't have, I can show you numbers, but I don't have that particular table handy. Let me share.
Does it give you the share option, Darren?
Yeah. Share it.
So something's happening.
Yes.
So, let me just move down to here real quick. Maybe we'll just go back, but I was talking about the NEBO unit. So these units are all being recommended to be managed under the moderate harvest strategy. So NEBO, if you look there, you can see on the 2025 recommendations, there's 36. In the RAC packet, we had a couple separate tables, and one of them showed 26 units, and that was just a typo. That's all we're talking about at the moment.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Can you kind of explain, what goes into effect to change a strategy before?
Yeah, so there's a few steps when we make these recommendations. Strategies, if you remember last year, we just updated the bear management plan. And one of the things that we wanted to do in that plan was to give our local biologists a little bit more flexibility in how they manage their units. And so, the district biologist and the regional managers will determine what they want their strategy to be based on what they want to see happening with the bear population. Once they choose a strategy, let me see if I can pull something else up. It might be easier to show you rather than as we talk through this. I might be getting too ambitious. So it's really small. It's going to be even bigger than that. It looks small way over here. All right, we'll try this. I'll have to scroll over. So we'll just take the beaver. Well, we can look at the book for a measurement for that region. So this is what our biologists see when they're making recommendations. This is the spreadsheet that we use. So if you look at Bookfist, Bear Creek South, you can see what their harvest data is. So those first three lines are the last 3 years of all of these parameters averaged over those 3 years. So on Bear Creek South, we've harvested 67 bears in the last 3 years. 23% success overall. Different hunt strategy, different methods of hunting have different success rates, but when you average everything together, that's what you get. And then there's a nuisance to sport ratio, and this is a way. So if we've got bears, for example, killing domestic sheep, and Department of Agriculture has to go out and take some bears in order to resolve some of those concerns. They have a number of bears that are harvested. So this ratio is a comparison to what the sport harvest was and what was taken for depredation. And the reason we have this is if that starts getting high, we really would rather have sportsmen have an opportunity to take those animals. And so our biologists look at that, and it looks like if their nuisance to sport ratio over the last 3 years is getting high, they might want to increase opportunity for sportsmen on that unit rather than have those issues be handled by UDAC. So moving over, so here we are in the harvest strategy. So 2022, 2024 harvest strategies, that's what it was the last 3 years. And then the biologists will go in and enter what they want to change their strategies to in that green box. So that's just a pull down. That's up to the district biologist. Obviously, there's some communication that goes back and forth. Brandon,
Aaron, I did notice there today, it says that previous strategy for the Book Cliffs, Bitter Creek South, has been, shows it here is light, but it's been moderate on the previous year's tables. So
Okay,
it's going from moderate to liberal, not light.
let's fix it over there. Okay, thanks, Randall, for that.
Just type it in.
And, I'm sure that was just a typo, yeah. So, so for that unit, we're recommending that go to a liberal, and we can talk about that here. I'm sure there'll be some questions about this. We'll probably have a chance to talk to you more about it. Then there's two parameters in the plan that the biologist needs to look at. The harvest strategy drives, see the two white columns where it says percent adult male range and percent female range. Those will change depending on what strategy you choose. So as you look down the line, you can see there's different targets that you're looking for. So on Book Creek, on the Bitter Creek South unit, since that changed to a liberal unit, what we're shooting for is less than 25% males 5 years and older. That's how we're defining adult. And then percent females should be between 40 and 45%. So for those, the actual data shows 37.1% adult males. So that's higher than what you would look at for that liberal strategy. And then percent females over the last 3 years was about 20%, 19.4, and you want that to be between 40 and 45. So that's lower.
Sorry, the percentages are what the recommendations are.
Right, yeah, the white columns are what they're shooting for, the gray columns are what the actual data is showing for the last 3 years. And that's how they determine what they're gonna do moving forward based on their strategy. In this case, we moved to a new strategy. And whenever we change strategies, you can adjust permits or quotas up to 50% of what you had during the last 3 years. And then, and again, they'll look at all of that. And then you've got permits from the last 3 years. So 91, they can adjust up to 50%. So it gives them a range so that you could have adjusted, the biologist could have adjusted up to 46 permits based on the plan. And then our biologist will take into account what's going on the ground and try to determine what makes sense. In this case, he's recommending that we go from 91 to 120 permits in the gray box. And then the rest of this is just stuff that I do. So that's how it works. That might have been a little bit long-winded. I hope that was helpful and it'll help with our discussion. I'm sure that we're going to probably talk about both of those things based on what I see here. So thanks for the question.
Can you help me one more time on the percent female? So like, is that the percent female in the harvest?
Yes. So that's just a ratio of males to females. A liberal strategy is intended to lower bear densities. That's what that strategy should do, and that's why you're trying to see more females in the harvest. So in the case of the Bitter Creek South, both of those parameters would indicate there's an opportunity, or the biologist should increase permits in order to try to get those parameters within the range, and that's what's going on there.
That's if we change the range though, right?
If he changes the range, right?
Is there a way to tell what those?
What they would be otherwise?
If they were, I mean, is there?
So if it stayed moderate, yeah, I can do it.
Just curious.
So if it stayed moderate, the ranges would be, you want to be between 25 and 35% adult males. So in that case, it'd be a little high right now. So you could afford to give more opportunity. For adult males, you want to bring that down into the range, and so more opportunity to take bears should lower that. And then again, it's low on the female side, so you could and probably should offer a little bit more opportunity to get that from 20% between 30 and 40. And then just real quick, if it's not a new strategy, they can choose, how those parameters look. So in this case, they be both outside the parameters in the same direction. So that's a 20 to 40% adjustment. So that'd mean that the biologist would need to adjust his permits between 18. And it's like chewing gum and walking at the same time. So the range changed. You can see now we're looking at either increasing by 18 or up to 37. So it's not quite as dramatic as 50%, but it's still, you know.
His adjustment's still inside that corral.
Right. Yeah. Again, I think we'll talk about booklets. The other things that we asked our biologists to look at specifically this year, got some feedback from some of our elected officials and some of our other stakeholders. And they had some concerns they wanted us to look at when we did recommendations this year. First was, do we have domestic sheep allotments on a unit? And if so, we should be managing to the liquid strategy. The other thing is, what, if any, effect are bears having on our mule deer? Generally, bears are not an issue in terms of, usually if you see an impact, it's the fawns. Bears will eat fawns during those first couple of weeks after they're born. Typically, you don't see a lot of the bears killing adult deer. They may scavenge them. And then conflict, just human bear conflict in general. If that was high, they wanted to see that addressed as well. So those were kind of the statewide concerns that we told our biologists to think about as they were making those recommendations. And so that's reflected in these recommendations as well. I'm just going to change this back and forth.
Any other RAC questions?
I have a question. So for the nuisance to sport ratio, is that both human conflict and domestic animals?
That's just the domestic livestock. Typically, we will, well, I actually take it back. We do sometimes remove bears in those situations. You know, if they're chronic and aggressive. We kind of scale the behavior and helps us determine what our actions should be. Usually that's a lower number than what we see for depredation take. And it depends on the unit. Obviously, if they don't have domestic sheep, that number is usually fairly low. So
If we're able to meet change the stagnant inside the current moderate specification, there need to go to a legal strategy.
I mean, if the management strategy is the same, I'd say not necessarily. We do have, it's important to remember that the legislature did pass a code a few years ago that requires, if we see any kind of detriment by predatory animals or carnivores to deer, the division director is required to enact predator management on that unit. So in this case, Coast Bear Creek South, we have seen some fairly high, and when we did the neonate study, we did see some fairly high losses to bears and lions from those neonate fawns, those young fawns. And so in this case, that's what we're looking at. So that our predator management strategy says, if we see that, we'll manage bears under the local strategy. So that's why we're recommending it the way it is. It's just a recommendation. If the RAC wanted to have a discussion, do something different, that's obviously on the table.
Any other questions on the RAC? Let's go ahead and move officially to questions from the public. So you'd like to stand up, state your name probably, and
That'd be nice.
not to come forward though, the owl will hear you.
Davis, representing the Animal Association. You already answered my first question.
Okay.
I'm still gonna point it out.
Okay.
So the bear plan as he described was a very good description for all of us. 2 basic metrics. Based on these metrics, 60% of the statewide should call for a decrease. South Harvest being one of those. It's extremely high, even with hunters are primarily looking for much rewards. Within my network of constituents and across the state, they've spoken with their local biologists. And it's pretty clear the biologists are not necessarily giving a fair input on some of these and are overruled in places. A lot of these signs indicate that some of this is driven by maybe politics and special users. Is that correct? Where does it come from?
As I mentioned, there's a lot of stakeholders involved in management, so we take all of that into account. So there's a biological side, then there's a public side, and obviously different user groups have different concerns, and so yeah, all that goes into the mix. Yeah.
What month do we see the most human bear conflict?
Typically in summer months when people are out in the field, so it correlates to the number of people in the backcountry, and just increases the odds that people and bears are going to come.
So June,
July,
and July.
Yeah.
So right after we get done feeding for the year, for the month, during the wet season.
Yeah.
Could you pull up the population graph? I wasn't going to stop you because it wasn't on camera.
That's we were on something. I can do this twice in a row.
So our last year on there is from 2021, correct?
Correct.
So we're 3 years in the lag. But we're on a downward trend. Is that what we see?
Yeah, let me quickly just explain this. I think I did in the presentation, just so we're all on the same page. So this is a population trend based on the age of animals at harvest. Typically, you don't see a lot of cubs because it's illegal to take cubs, and so they're not represented. And a lot of times yearlings are underrepresented because they're small. People don't want to harvest a small bear. So we don't include those few age groups. So this would be an estimate of bear population trend for animals 2 years and older. We estimate males based on ages because they're the ones that are most likely to be representative in the sample. And then we estimate the number of females based on what hunters tell us the tree we're seeing at bait. So that's based on that. So in this graph, we're assuming about 1.15 females per male based on some of that data. And again, that's why it doesn't come up to the current day, because if you're trying to back calculate, you don't have a couple of age cohorts, you can only get so far into the future. Looking at the data overall, if you look at it statewide, I would say that trend has continued, that we are seeing a reduction in bear numbers overall over the last couple of years too. I don't think some of this is drought driven, but when you look again, it varies unit by unit, but overall the state looks like, we got very high female harvest, but looks like probably still headed down.
Thank you. On that, for the spreadsheet you shared earlier about your management strategies with the male-female ratios, could you pull that up?
It's probably a smart way to get this straight.
Yes. Background screen, don't you?
I wasn't paying attention.
Okay, right here.
You want to look at ratios, the harvest data?
Yeah, we can walk across here. Since we've already looked at the boat clips, it's pretty familiar with this at the moment. What age or what are we constituting a female? Is that number represented by an adult female?
It's any female that's harvested. So, and we would classify an adult as a 2-year-old or older. When it says adult male, that's because the heading, the text, all of the text does it, but in the plan, we're talking about 5 years or older. And the idea behind that metric was typically people will select for older age males. You want to get a Typically for hunting, you want to get a large male. So we would expect people's effort to skew towards adult males, and in the plan, depending on your harvest strategy, you know, the more adult males you're seeing in the harvest, probably the more bears on the landscape. You start seeing that drop and people start switching to females. So you kind of go big adult male, big females, and then you start getting into those younger cohorts. So adult male is 5 years or older males in the harvest. So that percentage is that part of that population. Adult female or females is all females. So any female that shows up in the harvest is there. And that's again over the last 3 years.
So my math, in 3 years in the third grade, that accounts for 56% of our harvest, right? What makes up that other 44%?
I don't, are you trying to add them together?
I already did.
Okay, you should be.
Young males.
Yeah.
The younger males then that aren't replied.
Right, yeah, it'd be males 5 years and younger.
Yearling females, because if we're classifying females at 2 years older.
Females should be included.
As all.
Yeah, these are ratios. So females are ratioed to males. So for the book clips, 19.4% of all the bears harvested were female. And then when you look at the male side of the males harvested, so you can do the math on the 19%, all those males, 37% were 5 years old.
Okay,
So we both get to the same place on that.
Yep, so 44% are sub-adults.
Right. Of younger than 5.
As we were walking through this, one more question. We got closer to the end over there and skipped a call, and I'd like to ask what it meant on professional judgment only.
So we'll move down to cash. We do look at, it's a
book list.
Well, we don't have, so, but cash, basically, if you only harvested less than 10 bears over 3 years, none of these percentages are particularly meaningful. It's just, you have, you know, so they start to wash out. Does that make sense? Just this is a lot of percentages. And so for some, cash is one. So if it says yes on the professional judgment only, that just means you have relatively low harvest. You shouldn't be basing it on those percentages, and then that's up to the biologist to make a decision based on what he's seeing on the ground and or what she feels like should be. So any of those that say that are in yellow, say yes, are going to have relatively low harvest. So again, there's Levant, Fillmore, if you go across, see it was 3. So that's why that's that way.
When was the last year we done badge implants in the book list for the animals?
2020. Last time we collared neonates on the book list. 2020.
2019 to 20 and 20 to 21, I think.
So, yeah, I'll probably should have broken on that. Any other questions?
You can just say.
I could just stay there?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know the camera was turned there. So somebody come to the mic. My name is Jason Binder. I represent myself. I've been housing for 30 plus years, and I really have a lot of questions and a lot of concern about this plan. Darren, can you explain to us how much actual biology is going into this new plan? Because to me, it sounds like it's all legislative and special interest group. Just like spoken just a second ago, doesn't sound like there's a whole lot of biology in this plan.
So the decisions about what harvest strategy to choose are both biological and social. You know, as I mentioned, we did get some. We did have some concern from elected officials expressed about those topics I talked about before. So the impact to domestic sheep producers, potential impacts to deer, and conflict with the public. And so that's when we choose the strategy. When we chose the strategies this year, we took that into account along with many other things that are going on a unit by unit basis. So once the strategy is chosen, that's all then driven by the biological data we collect. So the number of animals harvested, the percent of males in the harvest, and the percent of females. So, and Jason, it sounds like your concern is with that first step, that maybe, you know, when we take feedback from our various stakeholders, that some of that, some of that initial decision might have been too heavily weighted toward a particular group. Is that, I'm just trying to interpret what you're asking.
Well, the main question is, so I've been to this RAC meeting the last 2 years, and in this meeting, we have determined that we are drastically damaging the bear population, and we should be asking for increases, and all we are getting out of the new plan is decreases. So that's why I'm at, or we're getting increases and not decreases.
But it depends on the unit. So there are several units where, yeah, we're managing to keep lowering those bear numbers. There are other units that they're staying same, like more units are staying the same strategy than as they were before. And risk of jumping back and forth here, I can show you those. But yeah, the first step in the process is what's going on with bears and what do we want to see with our bear populations on a given unit. So you really need to look unit by unit and to really get a good feel for what's going on. But I think it is fair to say that, you know, we are trying to manage for fewer bears on a lot of units in the state, based on the concerns that have been expressed.
And my next question is, can you explain the new harvest objective tags?
In which way? Just
Are they over the counter? Are they?
Yeah.
Can you explain the season dates and the reasons why?
Right. Well, there's nothing real new. We've had harvested tags a little while now. It just means that instead of having a set number of permits, the biologist is choosing a quota for that season. Most of those are during the fall, during our big game hunts and overlaps. So it starts September 1st and runs through the end of October. Now, there are some other harvest objective permits or hunts in, most of them are out here, but in some others they're at different times. And usually that's just an effort to try to get some folks in the field. And yes, they are over the counter. So those, you know, there's no limit to the number of permits that can be sold. Once the quota's hit, then the unit would shut down.
Okay. I believe I saw some of those starting in July. Is that correct?
Some of them, yeah. That was on those particular units. That's where we've got some human bear conflict. We're dealing with it. We thought if we extend that season into July, we can let some folks perhaps get some hunters on some of those bears that, rather than have us kill them, maybe we can get a hunter up there. So that's why. So it's probably 4 units, something like that.
Okay. My next question is, so in June, you run all the spring bait hunts. So now you're selling over the counter harvest objective tags. And so say so-and-so draws a bear tag, they go pull their bait, them bears are still going back to that bait in July. You just open season on because their friend goes, oh yeah. So I really don't think that season date in July is fair because you're going to see.
Well, that's why we're here tonight. We're happy to hear comments.
You're going to see a major impact on the bears, and also that early July date. Who's going to see a cub that's that tall? Next question. Overall, sow's harvest is higher than the boars on almost all the units, and so that's why I don't understand the increase. Thank you for your time.
Any other questions from the public?
I was often represent myself. Why are we not managing the season dates consistent across the state, primarily in the booklets?
So when the bear committee met last year, we had a lot of discussions, and we tried to simplify things and make everything the same. But we did have some compelling concerns and arguments about not arguments, but discussion about the book list in particular. And the committee felt like the way it's set up currently really makes the most sense for that unit, so they left it the same as in the past.
Do you know the AMU numbers for the sheep and primary in the book list and down and out?
I don't. I know that in terms of livestock loss, it's not high in the book list. I don't think there's a lot of sheep.
There's no sheep out there.
Yeah, big cattle. So we don't see a lot of losses. The management strategies on the book list are primarily from those fawn numbers that we saw. So again, you know, we're here to talk about it tonight, but that's what we tried to.
Any other questions?
My name's Jared Ma, represent myself, and I'm a member of the UHA. I'm just curious on that Bitter Creek. I spent 7 days straight out there, ran into 8 other houndsmen, and we pretty much spent 7 days running the same sow all over the mountain. But if they call and do a survey, that looks like there's 8 bears that have been out there running the sows. How does that number fall into that?
This is just based on what they killed. So out of the bears that were killed on that Bitter Creek unit, 20% of them were females, and the rest were males of some age. So yeah, we do a survey on. So if you're talking about how many females per male,
yeah, and just on the percentage.
It could be, and when we're doing a survey, we say, well, how many males did you treat? How many females did you treat? And so that's what it's based on. So yeah, I mean, if you're treating the same female over and over, and so that's just to try to get us, you know, that population trend is really the best thing we've got, but there's a lot of problems with it too. And so we don't use that as a management parameter because of that. We are actually trying to work with USU to maybe see if we get some better methods to actually figure out how many bears we've got on the landscape. But that's going to be in the future. So for now, these are the things that we rely on. It's how many adult males were there and how many females were there, and that's what drives the decision.
Okay. With that being 19.4, wouldn't that really state that there's not that many female population out there to bump that up to 45%?
It could be. I mean, if you're female, there just aren't females available, but that's why we look at it over 3 years.
But still, even with that declining on that graph, we're still bumping up.
Try not to. Usually, if you run out of male, it's got a lot of adult males, which looks like, you know, there were a lot of them out there for people harvest. It's over 37%. You've got a similar female number. We could look and we can dive into numbers and look back through, but I defer to the region on what they've been seeing if they're looking at it. But you need to, you'd want to think, well, is that just because there aren't a lot of females, or is that because people are not selecting females? And I'm sure you've got a feel for that, but our biologists look at that too. So
thanks.
Yeah.
Rod Smith, I'm representing myself. Can you pull up, Darren, all the bear tag numbers for 2024 to 2025 and difference between the two? And I don't know if RAC has everybody seen those numbers, but across the board, you know, what was represented, you know, across the board, that's a huge increase, you know, especially like the manti. I mean, I know this is Northeast RAC and we're concerned about, you know, diamond and buck cliffs, but the manti is my backyard. I love hunting there, and it's a huge increase, you know, but it's statewide. Like
statewide, it's about 130 extra permits and quota. So the quota's weird because you're thinking about how many bears am I likely to harvest if I put this quota out there, and so
good. I mean, like earlier you said that the success rate was 20-something%.
It depends on the unit, but yeah, again,
does anybody like those numbers? I mean, would you guys put in for the unit that's 20% increase, or 20%? You know,
it's higher. It's higher for hound hunting and bait hunting, and much lower. So, for example, it looks like in 2024 is 27% for the hound season on Bitter Creek, 40% for bait hunters, and then 5% for the fall spot or the fall season. That's the hound season in the fall. Coast line, I do the best example because their seasons are a little different. And then the spot stock was about 20% success. And overall, that comes to 23. So it's important to look at those. That's probably for a spot stock hunt. That's pretty good. That probably is some indication of the number of bears people are seeing on the landscape. They're just boot hunting and they're seeing bears and taking them. I would expect units with higher bear densities to have larger success rates.
There's that number in the spot stock tags.
I'm sorry.
Is there a set number of spot stuff?
No, I mean, it's up to the buyer. So what you'll do on that sheet, they'll come up with an overall number and then they can divide it between the hunts however they want. So there's a multi-season opportunity. There's a spring hound opportunity, a summer bait. There's a fall hounds season in August, and then those spot stock tags during the big game seasons. And then that fall hounds season also has a couple weeks in November, which usually most of our female bears at least are going to be thinning up.
There is a set number of spot and stock tags.
Well,
Yes,
it is. The quota is what you're looking at. So there is. Okay, I'm sorry. I was understanding what you're asking. So there isn't. You can sell as many of those as you want. But once the quota is filled, unit shuts down.
Yeah.
On the roadless area, you have the limited entry spot for stock hunts, if that's what's confusing.
Right.
And the rest wouldn't have that.
Okay. Thanks, Randall. Yeah. This is a little bit now.
You're tracking the method of take from the survey to be able to put them in the bins.
Right. Yeah. This is complicated. I understand.
Any other public questions?
So I got a question, Darren. So what, where do we draw the line of, you just mentioned the fall spot and stock that goes during the big game hunts. What is it that I can go down the Book Cliffs, ran into somebody that's hunting elk, saying, hey, where'd you kill your bull at? Where's the gut pile at? That was down in Papa TR Springs.
It would be legal as long as you.
So you're legal to do that because you're not hunting off the bait, but you know that there's a gut pile there, and there's going to be a bear there.
You can't move it. You gotta leave it live, and you can set up on it.
And how long have we been doing those, Darren? Those fall spot and stocks.
I think it's been 3 years. I think we started about midway through the last cycle. So and it wasn't all the units. It was a handful of units to begin with. And I think 2 years ago, maybe it was 3 years ago, we added more units. And again, success rates really, it seems like it's driven by the number of bears.
Thank you.
Yeah.
One more question.
Don't stand up, sit down.
I just got informal in a hurry. Eric, could you explain to us what makes a sow illegal to harvest?
If they've got cubs, it'd be illegal to take them. So yeah, you be careful if you're watching bears, especially if you're spot stocking, and some of these units will be able to do it in July. They're going to need to watch that bear. Make sure she doesn't have cubs with her. It doesn't mean they don't ever get harvested. And we do sometimes have to rehab cubs even before this, that people take her sow, cubs show up somewhere later. It's not a lot, but occasionally we do rehab some cubs. We think that's probably what happened.
I've seen some numbers in relation and specifically to livestock issues. And we've got numbers on bears and mountain lions. Why do we not see any other numbers for other predators?
Like coyotes. You said bears and lions, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
The one data set I seen showed the bald eagle in Summit County.
Yeah. So we, we have a compensation program that and it only applies to protected species of wildlife. So coyotes, you'd have to go to UDAF, get those numbers. But for bears, lions, eagles, and wolves, we'll compensate. So we track all that. And we do ask our partners at UDAP to report those numbers, and they go out and verify those kills. They're the ones on the ground verifying it. We did ask them there's not a whole lot you can do about eagles. It's a federally protected species. And so, you can't do any kind of legal management with eagles, but we do want to know what's going on. And then, it's usually lamb depredation in the spring for that short period of time after they lamb. You get eagles picking them up and dropping them, and they can kill a ewe. It's really rare. But most of what we see, at least at the moment, is lion and bear. We've had wolf in the past. That's probably been 3 or 4 years since we had a wolf kill in northern Utah. So, but we do monitor all that stuff.
So since you share that data for the coyotes, understandably, it's not your issue to manage. Can you maybe touch on the percentage ratio of what that is compared to the mountain lions and bears?
I don't have a number. Obviously, it's a concern, and it probably we did do a study on the cache and the needle. I think it was a manti. We actually collared domestic lambs to look cause specific, like we do with our fawns. Sure. It seems like I can get it for you, Daniel, but it seems like looking back on it, coyotes probably accounted for about the same number as cougars and bears combined. And then there's disease, and they fall in a hole and blow a whole bunch of those. But generally, that's probably generally how it shakes out.
That ratio similar like for the book with deer on study is coyotes, bears, lions.
When we did the fawn study, I don't remember the coyote number.
Yeah, there is a
Randall,
coyote
if you remember, but it seems like 1 year bears was actually more than lions, but they were both 25-ish%-ish.
About 30 to 33%, depending which of the 2 years. Bears were actually higher, and look, this is a 1 unit in the state. The bear predation was higher than cougar predation consistently on those studies for fawns and neonates out there. We do have bobcats there. They had 1 out of 21 the first year that was killed by a bobcat. 1 out of that same 21 that was killed by a coyote. It's all that. There is other sources of mortality that are there and identified, and it was really bears and cougars by far.
We do currently have one going on with LaSalle, similar study, and the first year it was about 25% to both lions, bears, and the last year they have data that dropped quite a bit, if I remember right. For bears, it seems like it's a function of density. There's a lot of bears. They key on those fawns when they hit the ground, and they can take a lot of fawns. If the density of bears is lower, then they'll eat a few, but they just can't cover the ground, and it's probably less of a concern.
So would I be accurate to say that the Oquirrh study was a little bit of a mess on the mimics? In relation to that, I've heard it twice now where you're making a comment about 2 years, but the study actually went for 2.
Yeah.
I'm gonna call back some depth for those who don't know. The last year of that study, we actually had more neonates die without predation than we did from predation, correct?
Yeah, I don't know.
We had 29, and just from cougar and bear, we had 20 out of the 29 that died from cougar and Kenton Beach on that second year. So on the first year,
I'm talking about the third year.
I guess I don't have the third year.
I haven't seen a third year, so that's a big game. So I'm pretty ignorant. I don't know about that. But if you've seen something, Daniel, you don't know me yet. I'm not put you on the spot. That's not your.
It definitely came through this this RAC process when I was sitting on the other side.
Yeah, I'm sure we could get that for you, Daniel, but I don't.
I have one last question. How many collared bears do we have currently in the state?
Probably about 30.
How many left on the book list?
3, 2.
I have the South book list, it'd be 1, 2,
Okay.
there's 6 or 7, I think, so probably not.
Yeah. We could look it up for sure, Jason. I can look at that here while we're.
While we're doing that, any other questions? Maybe let's go ahead and do the electronic comments.
Just one person on this, they strongly disagreed with the proposal. Their comment was that there should be no pursuit during hunting seasons. And then they also said that there's too many tags, need more mature bear.
Okay, just clear up.
Okay, yeah, I'll just proceed and I'll look that up and I'll jump in.
And we'll move to public comments.
Just anybody else have any cards? There's been one for the first one.
All right, so first one down is.
These are if I stand at the full moon so I can watch the feel a little important maybe for 5 minutes.
You're in the 5 category.
So I'm here to represent Utah Houndsman Association. My name is Daniel Davis, for those that don't know me. I want to introduce myself as a sportsman and also as a houndsman. I travel all over the country hunting, being a sportsman. I travel over the world hunting. I'm not just a houndsman. I'm not a pro-predator. I'm all about the North American model and sustainability across all of our species. What I hate to see happen in Utah or where we get to is what our neighbors 30 miles away just got done last year. They had a heck of a fight. Their fight is over for the day, but Arizona's just started. The only way they won that battle is off of scientific data, bioevidence data that's accurate. That was the only way they could persuade or show to their voting base exactly what was going on with their cougars in Colorado. Last month, we went through the cycle. Chairman hit on what the wildlife board voted on. During that process, we talked a lot about data, the technology that we have today, technology that's evolved over time, and being able to make these accurate assessments. And that's what we would like to see stick. Last year, as Jason mentioned, it went around the state, and overwhelmingly, there was a huge support for a decrease across the state for bear permits. We agreed as Utah Houndsman Association to hold it as it is because it wasn't the time. This year, on a 3-year cycle and permit recommendations, is the time. That's the fuzzy part. Where did we go from last year to this year? We done our part to stay in the flat. But why all of a sudden a change this year? I want to talk about the book clubs a little bit. Obviously, we've been there all night, so we're going to live there a little bit longer. When we talk about these big percentage numbers that we see up here, that's extrapolated data. That number for mature boars is 8. I want you to understand that the actual bears that are harvested are only 22 out of the 90 permits that are given. Darren made the statement that, we should see higher success rates on those seasons. And the reason we don't, probably due to low bear densities. Now, granted, people are going to go out there and try to hunt for a trophy animal. That's across the board, every species. Right? So it's not a nuance to have somebody want to go out for a big boar. The problem is we have 44% of that number on that very small number Making up almost half of that harvest is sub-adults. Sub-adults. And that's a problem. On the Vernal Bonanza. That's a problem. I think it's getting looked over hard on where we're at with that. 63% sow harvest. 11% boar harvest. Now, when we make a reduction, why are we making a reduction to the lowest minimum requirement? Man, we've seen instances where we can have a 50% increase and we go for 52. But when we go for a reduction, we go for the bare minimum. I'd like you to consider that. Speak to the baiting issues. We see a high success of baiting, and it's okay. Well, if the houndsmen are going to trophy hunt, the baiting is a little less selective, right? Again, most of our conflicts are in July when we get done feeding them for how long, right? We tend to induce a little more of our own issues by feeding them donuts. I mean, if you're on social media and you don't see it, you're not in the right crowd. These bait piles are astronomical with pastries, bacon grease, dog food. Doesn't that sound like something you have set on your camper table in July when you're out camping during the summer? So it's hard to teach them it's okay in one hand, but it's not in the other. The hunt date structure. You've seen where we were less effective on the fall bears in the book list. Our season structure does not allow us to be effective for 2 minutes. Doesn't allow us to be effective in the current management strategy the way we need to hunt. When a lot of these conflicts are in place, or we need to do some things to hunt bears or apply pressure or harvest the outliers, we're not able to. Our season has been short. We have to end our hunting earlier. On the forest where these quote unquote livestock issues are happening, we can't even get on most of these units because the gates are on. The snow depths are too high. So how can we mitigate those problems when we can't even access those units because I'm restricted by my hunting? If we could go a little bit longer, we're a lot more effective. So I'd ask you to consider that. Lastly, I'd like to leave off by saying we were here a year ago. To show we needed a decrease. We ask that you leave the state as it was. We've seen a decrease in populations. It's trended over time. We're heading in that same direction. With increases, 17% increase statewide, 180 permits. That was that third grade enacted. So we ask that you leave it as it was for the last planted cycle. Let's get a grasp on this and quit riding the roller coaster and see where we can be most effective in our management. Thank you.
You're good. You're good.
Eric Minkum, houndsman for 42 years. I've watched it go up and down. And most of the time when it does go down, your bear or your lion population, with what we've done with the lions, by the time you've increased your tags, it's made too big of a dent, and it's a long time to catch back up. I highly believe that it is other groups that's pushing it as much as it's not the science and the houndsman that does it. Because as a bear population, I do believe that most of it is hound doggers. And you can choose what you take with the hound. Others you can't. You're baiting. Most people don't. They just shoot what comes in. And I just highly disagree with any of your increases at all on any unit. Thank you very much.
You can stay there.
Let me stay right here.
Yeah, because then the camera sees you.
My name's Jason Binder. I'd like to hit on what Daniel said. Had a great presentation and I appreciate it. As I mentioned, I've been in this meeting for the last 2 years, and every year it has been explained from Darren that we've majorly damaged the bear population and we should be looking at an increase. And it's been actually, the RAC before, there was several other people that were on the RAC before you guys. And they'd actually asked for changes in reducing numbers, and they were told that that was not an option until this 3-year cycle. And then we would address the tag decrease, not increase. I've been hunting hounds for, like I said, 30 plus years. I hunt all over the state, and bear numbers are not anywhere what they used to be in any unit. I see a really strong conflict with the advanced expansion of the harvest objective. Like I mentioned earlier, in July, I don't care how good your optics are, you're not going to see a cub that's the size of a 5-gallon bucket standing next to its mom at 1,000 yards where people are shooting. I really don't think that's fair. And they're also going to be hunting abandoned bait sites. I mean, they're easy to find. If you know one was there, and bears are still going to be coming in July. And I'm strongly against that July season at all. Most of all, I'm against any harvest objective at all, because we watched it ruin lion hunting until the legislature decided they're going to step in and just abandon lions at all. I mean, harvest objective is no management tool. There's no, I don't even know what you want to call it. It's just not even a management tool at all. And so I'd like this RAC to really consider what Daniel said. Let's look at how many numbers of bears we actually have. Let's get some more collared bears on the ground. I mean, Darren's still waiting for my update, so we're at 36.
36 statewide, looks like 6 on the book list.
And I believe there used to be like 15 plus bears on the book list years ago when Al Black was running the study with the BYU. We need more information. We need more studies done. We need something better than a computer-aided model where you can just type in on the computer and change it to however we think it needs to be. We need scientific data to manage these bears. Bears sleep 6 months out of the year. They're not out there killing sheep 12 months a year. Half the year, they're asleep. There's a reason why prairie dogs are on the endangered list. No difference. Bears are just bigger prairie dogs. They sleep 6 months a year, just like. Thank you for your time.
Jared Ma, these guys are pretty much beat it into the dirt, but I just like you guys to think, you know, I don't truly believe them bear numbers are out there like they're saying. I spend a lot of time out in the hills. You know, I'm hunting pretty much every day. Just even if I'm not hunting, I got dogs just running around fishing, enjoying the rest of the wildlife. But I just don't believe they're there, and I don't approve of the tag increase at all. But that's all I have to say.
That's all the comment parts for this item. To discuss it.
Can I ask you a question? Sure. I'm too blind to read the numbers on that.
I can.
But on the chart you had there, the first grade column, the nuisance to sport ratio. Explain that to me, would you please?
So that's what that's going to be is, Richie, is that's just a ratio of how many bears are killed in conflict situations. Usually it's livestock, you know, they're killing sheep, and so you have those outtakes to sport harvest. And so, are you looking at it? So like cash hog at 8.83, that's high. More, they're killing. UDAP is killing more bears than our sportsmen are, and so, and that's sheep related. And so, you know, the biologist looks at that and he goes, you know what? These bears are being taken. Let's let some sportsmen take them rather than the government take them. So that's what that's there for. And it's just a quick way for a biologist to say, what is my depredation looking like when my bears are being handled by the government trappers close to sportsmen?
Okay, so now it says 0.01.
Right. So yeah, it's virtually, there's virtually none close to livestock. Yeah.
Daniel, I got a question for you. So your proposal would be to keep the permitted numbers about the same for the expanded season.
So keep the numbers the same they were the year before. Give us the season dates that the rest of the state has, because those are structured for an optimal harvest of mature boars, things of that nature. Sow only gestates once every 3 years. So a 3-year management plan is hard to manage a population in a moment.
So you're talking the booklets specifically or
statewide?
Statewide for the hounds. The hounds.
Because of the decrease.
Right, to interrupt, JC's always at these meetings and he turned the card in. Well, wait, are we gonna let him take the comment?
I'm J.C. Brewer. I probably spent as much time in those fish as any man in this room. I grew up out there. I've up there all my life. I kind of sound like the houndsman standing up on the fishing game tonight, so I'm gonna have to try to help level up here just a little. I think that they're a lot closer to right than these houndsmen are about the number of bears to put this. I strongly support the proposal to increase the take.
Carry on.
So as I guess I'll kind of speak for a second. I was looking at these numbers before even tonight. I don't know if mine's changed. As I look at these numbers, it's been mentioned several times that we're looking as a state to manage bears by certain strategies, through science and biology. Looking at these data graphs, I think correct me if I'm wrong, but as I glanced through it tonight, as we've been visiting, I think there's 5 units that have no change. One possibly has a decrease, and every other unit has an increase. If we're basing those numbers off biology and science, looking at the percentages there, I don't see that. I lean towards the houndsman here and keeping it, if anything, the same. But I see that there should be some increases. I remember this meeting last year, and it was mentioned as we were talking about close to certain areas in this region that we would visit again this year with the percentages and things that I've seen, just through science and through biology. I'm not understanding the increase. Digging the inside, and if anything, you can get the same strategies that we had last year. I do like, I know we've been talking numbers, like options and bait barrels and different parts of this that I do like. Talking about numbers. But as far as increase and the hunt strategies, which in turn is just the part numbers, as of right now, I think it's are you proposing doing away with bait?
No.
When you bait.
So baiting is a lot less selective of a process.
So what would you like to do?
Actually, the data doesn't support that. Actually, bait hunters take fewer females per male than hound hunters.
When did that?
That just last year, if you look at the percentage,
okay.
I can pull it up. But
okay, so
it's about, let me just say this, it's about the same.
As a hunt strategy, it's been viewed that bait hunters harvest more females.
Yeah.
The stance on the bait is we got to make sure we find that fine line of when we're giving too many. That we're now, because not every bear that visits that bait, it dies. And the more they get used to that, the more problems we have down there.
So you want somebody on the
just be conscious about not allocating more permits that direction.
I had a statement there. Chris had sent me a text earlier today and wanted me to read it. I mean, it's had a concern that our wildlife management is starting to be dissatisfied ballot boxes in state legislatures. The spot bear management plan is a prime example of this type of management. According to the state of Utah bear management plan, the main tricks that should not be introduced bear tags on the list and a few other units in the state. This management plan is created by to provide a balanced harvest of bears. I think they follow the bear management plan and not increase the bear tags. I've heard from lots of sportsmen that are against this increase in tags. I'm strongly encourage the RAC to consider not accepting the bear tag increase, but follow the bear management.
What if the other ones?
We've had different discussions in different RACs. Northern region makes sense. I mean, they have particular units that may be of concern. So Northern region was focused on the cash unit. They actually wanted to have more permits. They passed an increase in multi-season permits on cash. There was some discussion centrally. They passed as presented. Same in the southern region. Southeastern focused on the foot cliffs and beaver. Boulder.
The manti.
And the manti. I think they recommend some changes on the manti and not on the foot cliffs. And Boulder came out southern region. So this discussion has happened. It's focused on different units, and really you kind of do have to go through unit by unit and kind of see what's happening. But with each unit, and then it rolls up statewide, or those decisions are being made on a year-by-year basis. That's kind of it in a nutshell, if that helps.
I don't know what cattle deliberation is statewide. It's hard to figure cattle a little bit because it's easy to figure your sheep. Danny can make a comment on this. It's a little bit easier to figure your sheep depredation because sheep always have a herder with them. And a lot of times you'll find those dead a little easier how to go. Have a herder continually with them. So finding the depredation there sometimes if the sheep herds are, the herder keeps them kind of condensed. The cattle are widely scattered. So I don't know what we're getting as far as cattle depredation per se. It's kind of hard to figure that. I know I've had 3 confirmed bear kills in 30 years on calves, so my depredation's been pretty low.
Yeah, generally we don't see a lot of confirmed kills. We do producers we are concerned about, did the bear just scavenge it after it died? Did the bear kill it? By the time you get there, it's hard to tell. So it's difficult to always verify, but I suspect it's rather low. They're just too big. Once those calves are big enough, bears don't. Sheep is the big thing.
I have a question. Hypothetical question.
Oh, great. Okay,
Say like we're in a universe where all livestock concerns are removed. Would this proposal still be on the table?
Well, it wouldn't have been one of the things that we suggested our biologists take into account, obviously, but we still would have the deer component. So again, for bears, there probably are units where that's something to be concerned about, but most of the units that wouldn't be. And then there's just the human conflict part of this, and that's concerning. And I'm sure some of you remember how 11-year-old boy was killed by a bear 15 years ago. Maybe it's almost 20 now, but that's still too soon. And we don't want to see anything like that happen. And we've had more recent attacks. So bears and lions they're cool animals, are really neat to study, but there's that risk to the public that it's also kind of there. It's not high. It's like sharks. It's probably not ever going to have when it does. The public is really concerned about it.
From the livestock perspective, I haven't been getting any pressure to push. I'm involved in the Farm Bureau, the Cattlemen's Association, about every association that it is. And the bear predation has not been a hot topic. So I don't know that the pressure's coming from at least the cattle. I don't talk to the sheep industry much. So I don't know what they're saying. But as far as on the cattle games, it hasn't been a hot topic. Predation's always a concern, but I haven't had a rancher come to me and say, hey man, I'm gonna get wiped out out there. Or, I don't know, Danny. Had more guys come.
Well, you kind of hit the hammer on the nail. Sheep herds have a herder with them all the time, and cattlemen not always there. So there's a little bit of that that goes on, but I mean, every unit is unique, you know. There are no sheep in the book in the summertime, and there's one less herd of cattle out there.
So I don't know, maybe pressure's coming more from the deer.
Yeah,
Deer
it certainly is. That's why our direction to our biologist was specifically about sheep allotments. If we got domestic sheep allotments, they should be managing for lower bear numbers on those units.
Deer, a lot of these units are still under objective. And so I know that's where a lot of the pressure's coming from.
Yeah.
And what was the main predator of deer down in the Oquirrh-Stansbury?
It sounds like it was a combination of coyotes. It sounds like coyotes was actually low on the book list, right, Rand? So it was actually lions and bears when they did that stuff. And one year it was more bears, and the other year it was more lions, but they were both very high.
Can I ask just one more question? Sorry.
Yeah, sure.
I know there's a lot of units that are involved in this, and I look through your graph, you know, and I don't think there's any way to cover every single unit in this RAC meeting tonight, but, like if we make a decision one way or the other, I mean, if we reject these increases, is there any way for the division to say, okay, the cash does have, you know, lots of, you know, problem bears, and there are ways to step in and say that, you know, we are gonna increase, or how does that work?
Well, so we'll take the feedback from the RACs into consideration, and if we need to, we'll modify our recommendations to the board. So that will go on and do that. Depending on how the RACs go. I'd suggest if there's particular units, you know, the book list been brought up that you want to tackle, that might be a good thing to just let the board know what you're thinking about those, and some of the other, you know, RACs are more familiar with the others, and if they didn't bring up an issue, then maybe it's not quite so much of an issue.
So I got the data for the predation study was 1 year of life for a fawn. Bear predation was 20% to 15%. Cougar was 15 to 30. And coyote was 5 to 15% roughly.
Do you have the numbers on how many individuals that was, or just?
It doesn't give the numbers, just the graph shows.
That's not the neonate data, that's the year round fauna.
I think I have that. I'll pull it up while you know.
So I think the book of those recommendations are for farms.
Yeah, that's what's driving.
Like that's the driver. It's not cattle.
So it looks like in 2019, 10 fawns lost to cougars, 10 to bears, 1 to a coyote, 1 to a bobcat, 1 to some unknown predator, one died from starvation, malnutrition, and 2 were stillborn. That's 2019. In 2020, 5 to cougars, 7 to bears, 1 to coyotes, 1 to bobcats, 1 with birth defect, 1 with an accident, like fell in a hole or something. 1 during capture, 1 unknown, and then 3 stillborn. Yeah. So that's the data that Clint shared with me.
So this graph does show the 3 years that Daniel was talking about, 19, 20, and 21. And in 21, for some reason, the unknown whole carcass studies were put up into the everything else was lower for that third year. So that was an anomaly of Western County.
I think I don't see really much evidence to support recent numbers. I think some experience with the law. There's a lot of other tools, such as expressing my opinion that increasing. I'm not sure I see a lot of evidence to support just increasing size across the board. In discussion about looking at this region or units in this region specifically, we potentially make some recommendations. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I don't know if we should, I think we should hold our motion to a Northeast region. Hash out their battles on that.
Specific units. I mean, we talked a lot about the book cliffs tonight. The Wasatch Mountains, there's one of them that's staying the same. Unicorn, 12 ounces, like 12 tags, I think.
What's the math I have right there?
Yeah, like north is increasing from 69 tags to 78 tags.
What's the south?
South side of the 7 tags to 5 tags. That's doing the full 35 tax adjustment.
It took my wife 14 years to roll that drag.
My thought is, I think I would lean towards if we have any recommendations, they be specific for the Northeast region units. So that would be what I would.
And Daniel, the houndsman would like to see the hook hunt dates changed to the same as the statewide. Make it longer.
It wouldn't necessarily be.
Those have any different conflict with big game seasons? Yeah. Anyways, I'm gonna make a comment, public questions to the public.
So yeah, the initial reason for that, I know Darren can explain.
Probably.
Anybody
Randall
else?
could probably speak to that. Why the seasons, why you did the seasons the way you did on the book list. I think there was some conflict. All limit entry.
They are done because of the limited entry. The book list is unique that all the big game species are all limited entry. Elk and deer and stuff in that way for it. That was the competition to try to not have those impact those almost once in a lifetime deer and elk permits that people draw out there. And so that's why the season's slightly different.
And the reason why we asked for that is those season dates structure changed with the new management strategy, primarily with the elk hunt. So there's not as much conflict there, so we felt comfortable moving forward. It's just hard.
The other discussion on the route.
Randall, do you see conflicts if they do change the hunt dates?
Changing the hunt dates.
Yeah, like to the statewide.
If we do it, or if we do it with hounds, then you have the conflicts. And that's the broad complaints and arguments we've had here I've been here for 30 years, been arguing about this for 30 years with Brooklyn. That's when we we'll have people in here next year screaming that there's hounds running through their hunts all the time. So the spot and stock doesn't bring in hounds, they don't run through everybody's hunts and everything else that we're working on. So that's why we've settled with the hunt dates that we got. To try to the lesser of the two evils. Try to balance on.
Not in a conflict with other units in the state.
Not nearly as much because it's not all limited entry. In certain limited entry units that, it just kind of depends on how it is. And if you're familiar with book cliffs like you are, you know how many roads are out there, and how much access they get for, compared to other units in the state, it's unique to have that many roads. and dropping dogs wherever you want to that way out of the country. So it's been a balance. I mean, honestly, depends what your priority is. If bear hunting is more important, then we should probably change that. But in the past, what's kind of balanced out here is public asking for those to be left to their limited entry hunts, deer and elk, to be, to remove that problem. We have had problems with quite a bit of that in the past. It's kind of equal out, just kind of come to an equilibrium. Nobody likes it 100%, but it works out pretty fair, I think, to most people.
I know Jason, you brought up the harvest objective hunts, and just looking at most of the July hunts there might have been one in the Manti, but most of the Northeast region, I was looking at that, looks like they're not the July.
No, those are in the Northeast region.
I was curious, like 9 Mile, for example, I know there's daters out there, that one's September 1st. Start.
What if we just, so they changing the strategy from moderate to liberal. What if we just stayed with that moderate category for book list?
I think that was interesting though. I think the number that's there is actually still in the moderate. Is that correct? It will still fall in the.
Well, we looked at that, it looked like the recommendation could still be the same, whether it was moderate or. I think the typo of light, having that typo of saying it was light through Southeastern Region RAC talked about this and actually voted on keeping it light, and I didn't realize we had a mistake there. So it wouldn't be as big of a change as what it looked like in the packet. So you might want to address, I mean, if the concern is, and the RAC wants to address overall permit numbers,
This is what you guys do it for 3, like you can adjust the numbers every. So if you do it to moderate, you would be able to adjust them.
Yeah, I mean, these recommendations tonight would be for the next 3 years, so there wouldn't be any change unless something really strange happened or we needed to take an emergency change. So, if you wanted to keep it like it was during the last 3-year cycle, that would lock things in for the next 3 years as they were before.
So are you suggesting that we keep 91 permits for the 2024 season and 24 permits for the book books?
I think what you're saying, Jake, is if we recommend that they keep it at the moderate level. We could also maybe make it comment about the 120 tags, but the 120 is still within the moderate. You could have gone up 46 tags instead, it's gone up 29. I think you'd have to, the ones that have said no change, there would be just having no change if it stayed at 91 for the Greek style. I can ask the question, maybe I still will, but for the houndsmen that have been out in the book cliffs, you're just not seeing the bears, and there's not the harvest of adult males. There's a higher harvest of adult males. Do you feel like does the book cliffs, people being more picky in the book cliffs in general?
I think everyone's kind of panicking and shooting what they can. It takes them so long to draw one. By the end of the day, they don't care if it's a mid-sized sow or a boar or whatever. They want to fill that tag.
What we have is we have Colorado to the east of us. It doesn't have a hound season. It don't even have a spring harvest season where they can spot stuff in there. So those that are pushing the limits and hunting that down, they have the same thing over on the tribe and the roadless. So from my experience, a lot of that older trophy class male boars, if you want to call it that, tend to come from those areas, closer to those areas. From my experience and everybody that I have around, that's what
I agree. Last time I was in the road, I think there's that. It's not hunted at all, and I can understand why. It's hard to get in there, but.
You know, move things along, let's entertain a motion and we can break this apart, we can probably we can tackle our part first about the numbers and the recommendation. Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we, keep the booklets Bitter Creek South unit or tag numbers as is. You can water it, but no, just keep it to 91.
Motion to Richard Wheeler made a motion to keep the booklets Bitter Creek South unit tag numbers as they were in 2024. So that's consistent with the moderate recommendation strategy. Can it still say 91 and stay moderate?
So if it's changed to moderate, when we change it, it actually would require an increase of at least 18. And so, yeah.
So it's not a strategy change, it's the status quo.
If it remained moderate, then the biologist would look at different targets. So we still would have increased permits based on the harvest numbers, but probably not as much. The RAC can recommend,
The light stayed, if it was the light strategy, is there any strategy that would keep it the same? What was that strategy called again?
probably light.
Let me look. So if you look at the Wasatch Mountains West Central, that was a no change adjustment, 100 tags to 100 tags, and that one's actually still within there.
So for length of light, you'd be shooting for more than 35% adult males, and it was 37.1, so that'd be in the management. And then less than 30% females, and that would, it was 19.4, so that would be good. So both, that would be within the range. Biologists could adjust permits from 0 to so that might be the way you want to go. You also want to change it.
That's fine. I don't quite understand how it all works. It's kind of complicated.
Yeah,
Harvest objectives are, they're below, I mean, harvest quoted and below.
So, I can speak to that. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we rarely get these quoted.
Right.
Just rate that off to the.
I don't know if it helps. I could change my motion. Like, long.
Right. So take a stab at that. So keeping the book clips, Bitter Creek South tag numbers as is, and moving the recommended strategy to right. Actually, what was that? There's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
We can not for a second. No, just talking about that one unit, or are we talking about the rest of the statewide limits? The increase as proposed, or what are you?
I think it's just these units. There's one for that. So
The best accepted proposed? Or if
I think we'd have to do.
I will second that motion.
Go ahead and take a vote. Let's maybe do a roll call vote. Jason?
Could you reiterate that again?
Yeah. Yes, the motion on the table to specific to the unit, keep the book of Bitter Creek South tag numbers as is and move strategy to the right strategy. That we keep the red numbers at 91.
Jordan McMahon or
Mark China with 4.
Rebecca Johnson, 1.
G Cuber, no.
Yes.
No.
I'll say 4.
And there's 6 yes and
2 no.
2 no. And that motion passes. So, we got more plans to approve or modify. Another motion.
What about the early season? Does anyone have any heartburn with that?
The July.
Yeah.
I guess I don't get to vote, just looking at those units, though, they're more, looks like it's more conflict driven with.
Those should all correlate to domestic sheep a lot. Or no, sorry, human conflict.
I think they're just trying to find ways to.
Is there a method in place, like if you know there's a bear, even depredating on a sheep herd or an area, is there something that you could notify ag holders rather than?
We do, we try to do that,
Help them target.
but there's a process, currently there's a process, so, you have to find the hunter, you have to issue them a depredation tag. And this way, the guy, or a woman, if they bought that over the counter tag, they can go do it. Just cuts out a little bit of paperwork, some time to get them out in the field. And we can't always find the hunter, and so, it's pressing, we gotta handle it. But if we can, we'd like to have a hunter take it, just otherwise, we can keep them and utilize them, but they generally go to the auction. Probably costs more to have a technician skin a bear than if you get out of the hide and sell it. So it'd be nice to have let a hunter take it if we could.
But we just voted for the book clips to stay the same. Go with the DWR's recommendations on it. That's correct.
Did not vote on the other units, it was just that.
Yeah, we voted for that one. I'll make a motion on the other units. That we go with the DWR's recommendation on tax for the other units.
I'll take it out. Thanks for the motion, Darren, sheets you. Go with the DWR's recommendation on.
Just a quick thing, if you guys want to discuss anything else, what I maybe recommend is to address the rest of the proposal if you're done, just because it does include the bait barrel and those other aspects as well. So.
If that's not you, any other discussion on that, do you amend your motion to achieve to cover the rest of it?
Or we could, I don't have any discussion on that stuff.
I thought it was for the remainder also, so.
Okay, let's cover in the remainder of the proposal. So the motion would be to accept the remainder of the proposal for child black bear medical plan provision. And there's a second, like, let's go ahead and just do a vote, guy raising the hand for. Yes. Yes. Against, motion carries, passes. Is there anything that you guys would like to say?
It seems like they probably need to be a little more discussion about some of the units. I don't know what the answer is, so I appreciate what the councilman are bringing this to our knowledge. I hope the board listens to some of their thoughts.
I agree with like some of the proposal, but the increase statewide on a lot of these units that are way under. I think it's right. That's my heart. Without, I mean, I don't know if we can look at every single unit right now. But
statewide. Right, I have one comment. It'd be nice to maybe know like what factor the deer predation is. I think that would be helpful to have not as below the table, but just as part, even like one of the columns and some data behind that.
Yeah, I can include that. We look at a lot of things. I try not to overwhelm RAC too much stuff, but yeah, that would be helpful, I think. So yeah, we can definitely do that in the future. Or at least come to RAC report back. So you kind of know.
Thank you. All right, so continue on, we'll get Darren up for the Utah your recommendation on the March 6th.
So we're just making a couple of recommendations here at the moment to Cougar Gold. One of the things the board actually asked us to leave an action item. They asked us to look at, is there any reason why we couldn't allow the sale of grainy cougar pelts? Previously, you can sell it once it's tanned, but you couldn't when it was grain. We looked through this, tried to figure out the history on that, and it just didn't seem like there was any reason not to allow that. So we're recommending that the person can sell it untanned cougar pelt. And then the other is to allow for the use of rimfire ammunition if the cougars are caught in traps. So since the legislature allowed for trapping, the Trappers Association did ask, a lot of times it seems like in the first couple of years we've seen cougars taken with traps. Generally, trying to think of the word. They're catching them in like bobcat sets and coyote sets, so they're heading to the field with this 22 pistol or something like that, and then they get there and they got a lion. They'd like to have the option not to have to hike back to the truck to get something else. The only caveat is, folks need to be smart about it, make sure they're using a firearm that's up to their capability and lethality, so that they're making a clean kill. We felt like our ammunition is lethal in an animal that can't move. We are not recommending it for animals that are free range or in trees. So that's really it. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions from the RAC on this topic?
I know it's come up in one of the other RACs about selling other parts.
Yeah.
Is that an issue?
I don't think there's any issue, and in fact, a lot of times if you're selling a pellet, it's going to have claws attached. So I can't think of any reason off the top of my head, but obviously, if anyone here has some concerns about that, let's have a discussion about it. So that'd be skulls. Skulls of claws. Yeah, the current recommendation is just the hide, and you wouldn't be able to sell claws and skulls, but that's something that the RAC could recommend for this discussion.
Councilor, would demand for skulls?
Probably more of a demand for skulls than hides. So.
Other questions? Any questions? Questions?
Yeah. Wouldn't open it up to grain pelts, just make it more likely for like people are gonna just go after lions more so they can sell those pelts grain. I mean, tanning takes a little more out.
I think that's, some of the folks that propose this, that's what they're thinking. It might encourage you to take more lions. Currently, very few people take more than one. So we have to watch that. So that's a possibility. It may encourage some people to take more than one and sell. I mean, they can sell them now, but they've got to go through the extra step.
I just think that'd make it easier for them just to start peddling mountain lion hides a lot more. I mean, the Utah war on lions is ridiculous. I mean, that's where my heart and passion is in lions. I mean, I love bears, but it's absolutely ridiculous what we're doing to our lions. I mean, I know guys who've gone 2-3 years without cutting a lion track. And yeah, they're not like me and go, no, I'll hike 10 miles back in the backcountry with all these gated gates up here, all these canyons. I came from up north. I mean, I've gone tree 13 lions in a season up north. You come up here and it's dang difficult to even find a track. And if they are, they're on the res. I mean, that is what it is. That's where all our elk are, all our deer are. I mean, everything's on the res right now. But I don't know, it's just sad to see what lions are going through now. I think there should be a female harvest quota, statewide units, however you guys want to do it. Once so many females or kittens are taken by traps or by hunters, either anything like that, I think I shut that unit down for harvest. And it's pretty crazy seeing all these females get killed lions because you can't find any big toms no more. I mean, a lot of juvenile lions. I don't know what the numbers are on trapping, but I think a younger lion to be a lot more likely to get in a trap than a big mature one, but that's just my personal opinion.
Mr. Chair, I actually broke the wrong number. And, I just put the page. It was for this. Sorry.
Keep taking questions.
I do. So Darren, you reference the folks that asked us to propose this. Who
The board asked a board member, and it's on the action log, isn't it, Andy? I don't remember.
It is.
They did ask us when we did Lions this summer. It came out of one of the racks. It was brought up when we talked about Lions last. And Paul asked us to look, why did you look into that and let the board know? And again, I think we've covered, some possibilities here, but the legal standpoint, we just didn't feel like there was a reason not to allow, but obviously there's been a public process as well. So weigh in if you've got concerns.
Go ahead and summarize what.
Just one person responded, they strongly disagreed. They basically said Cougar hunt should get a draw.
Move to the public comments.
Daniel Davis, I'm speaking on behalf of myself at this time. The green pelts for the mountain lions, it's an ongoing war. I spoke to that already with bears and the issues we're having with our neighboring states. And where that's at, we're drawing a fine line, and I don't want that battle on our front door, on overseas, because I didn't want that battle on my floor. Right? The biggest concerning thing that I've heard across the racks is by folks, I'm not going to call out a special interest group or participants, that say, if I catch one and I harvest it, great, I got one. But if I catch another one again, what do I do? What do you do with it? Is there not a value? Is there not any value into that species anymore? Did you already pick one? And more of that's based upon snares. They're no friend to any animal. There's no give, no take. There's one place for that, and that's in wildlife services. They're the experts. I'd love to say I'm a professional hunter and expert, but they are, and that's the only place they should lie. These less than lethal methods of trapping allows us to. What am I going to do with it? If I have to ask myself that question, what am I going to do if I catch something? That hurts. That cuts me. My intentions are for one reason, right? Heritage, things of that nature. When I'm trying to make money off of an incidental take, because I didn't mean to catch them off that snare. Now what can I do with it? Well, heck, if I can get some gas money, I can sell it and make some money to pay for my tires, something like that, I have a problem. Thank you.
You want to add a card with this item?
I have a mix on with my bear one.
That's what I thought. I'll be okay with that. So I didn't make it. You're welcome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Pretty much what he sums up. It's just more of a war on the lions in Utah. Easier way to, like he says, you catch the second one, you catch the first one, might be a little kitten, shoot it there, and then catch another one, it's a big one. When that kitten, they're gonna sell that kitten off because they got that big one. The same as, if there's any even big ones left anymore. I mean, I hear nationwide, everyone, trophy lion in Utah now is 140 pound. Tom, that ain't no trophy. My dog can damn near stretch that size of lion out if it caught it on the ground. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Move to RAC discussion. Discussion.
You're able to sell a tan.
Correct. And that tan hide would also be able to have the claws as well, right?
I think the way the rules are written right now, I don't think a lot of this is going on at the moment, but the way the rules are written, you cannot sell skull or claws. So you have to take the claws off of the tan hide if you're going to sell it. So again, I don't think a lot of people are selling tan hides at the moment.
No comment. It'd be nice to clarify that somehow.
The guidebook would specify, it specifies what's legal to sell and what's not. So,
What is the tan hide sell for? I have no idea.
Someone told me $140. Like trappers told me that's about what you could get for one, but I'm sure that changes. Depends on how big it is, what it looks like, etc. Again, I think that's about what we get at the auction. We put one in our auction. We've had to take for some reason. Let's get that $140.
Randy, can I ask you a question? So this directive comes from the wildlife board, correct?
They asked us to look into it and come back and tell them, is there any reason why you have any concerns? And this is what we're recommending.
Okay. I personally don't see any issues with selling green hides or claws and heads. You do that with bobcats right now, can't you? No.
I'm gonna check the claws and heads. Obviously, yeah, you can
saw the claws are attached to the hides.
Yeah,
but you have to turn in the jaw on the bobcat. So
right, yeah,
that takes
you
some
can keep the skull. Well, I'll double
You want a
check.
mountain lion or a bobcat skull, you want both of them. You don't want this top. I mean, it's not like
That's,
here.
yeah, it's on bobcat. That's all you can, and we will pull teeth on the lion. You don't have to turn the jaw in like you do with bobcats.
To me, a lion's no different than a bobcat in this regard. Whatever the rules are with Furbearer regulations, I don't see why there's a difference. Should be able to sell the skulls and hides, skin claws, in my opinion.
Is there currently anything tracking? I mean, we're tracking how many people are killing lions, right? Now we will change.
Yeah.
You talked about, is there any method of tracking if they sold it? Just to know how many people.
Yeah, I mean, we could ask that when we do our survey. Yeah, we could add a question. I don't think there's any. But they would still need to have a seal and so I don't know, we necessarily know if sale took place, but that would have to remain with how it travels around. Otherwise, law enforcement would get this. So we'd be able to track it back after the fact. But if you do this, we can probably be useful to ask a question on the survey about how many lions did you take? Did you sell any of the pelts? And we can survey that.
It's logical that if you remove another requirement to sell something, they're going to be more sold, more lions killed. So it's just one more requirement removed. So as brought up by the public, then more lions. It's commodifying, making it easier to sell. That's my thought.
I don't know if this is a good comment to share or not, but this year I have seen a lot of lion tracks, and I've actually seen 3 different elk carcasses. A young man that killed an elk, there was a big lion track that drove the carcass clear into a pretty tough after been a couple weeks, but still I've been surprised to seeing some lion. It's probably just snow levels and the difference of where the elk are and things. It's like muzzleloader elk and it's gallows hunting season up on the farms to have seen some tracks up in a big elk. The one lion was bigger for sure, but probably a female and a cub that won't have. I've been seeing tracks in place, but I know there's definitely been concerns about it. Probably more so the way it went down, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's what's
That was
probably
dirty.
most frustrating.
I just like to add in with Jake's. I know he doesn't see the difference between the bobcat and lion, which everyone has their opinions, but if I can go drive up White Rocks Canyon and cut two bobcat tracks almost every time I go up there, but it takes me 3 months to find a lion track. I don't see the numbers there where it would be, equal to sell bobcat towards lion. There's not really a war on bobcat yet. I'm sure its time's coming after we finish with bear, but
Bobcat pelts are quite a bit more too, right?
yes, they are.
Maybe the spots.
Yeah, I kind of see it both ways. I've had an opportunity this last year. I didn't harvest it, but I had an opportunity to harvest a lot of shit. I didn't know what to do with it. I figured I had one on the wall, and this would open the door for me to form an incentive to go back and take that lion. I mean, I see it from the other side as well, the deep side. Recreation with our lost. So I was kind of torn. I kind of see it both ways. And I don't know what it's going to do. Maybe time will tell. But hopefully, if we go one drastically or the other. Correct that. So I can't trust them.
It seems like to me, illegally taken animals. What happens after that? If you need to reduce the hunt pressure, that needs to take place in hunting permits. But illegally taken animals, what somebody wants to do. If they're feelings that there's too much hunting pressure on cougar, then maybe that portion of the law needs to be changed. The actual, what a legal take of a cougar is, when, and how many, that needs to be addressed. But a legally taken animal is illegally taken. This isn't talking about, is it illegally taken? To me, it's almost two different issues. So what happens after it's legally taken, that's up to the owner of that hide. In my opinion, they took it legally.
Another comment, I guess, for the board's consideration, and I think someone brought up the female harvest objective, right? The quote unquote war on cougars is happening. Like, let's see what that war, what are the numbers, I know there was a big concern about over-the-counter elk tags and how that was going to kill all the elk. It would be nice to kind of see the numbers to show the real story, and with the mandatory harvest survey, that will help. And I think that's hopefully something that the division and the state is looking at in terms of what did the numbers in the harvest all of a sudden just climb sky high, or is it staying relatively the same? And that would be helpful just to follow up on that, to know, is it what we're worried about, or is it what we're saying? Go back to what's the science and what's the numbers. I'd suggest that as something to keep tabs on. I don't know. Got the first year, I guess, but there'll be some more years. We'll have a couple of years. And high snow and low snow, and see how it can shake out. I think, is there any other discussion? Entertain a motion?
I'm looking back at group six.
As presented.
You mind if I add that to add both laws in the retail verbiage?
Sure.
Yes.
Something as presented and including skulls and clubs. Be able to be so. Document process. It's good. I can have that take either second. Go ahead and go for the report out. Please show that.
Hold your hands still.
Got it. Those hands. 3 days. Motion passes. One more time. Well, do you want to take a break? Keep going.
This next one might be quick. It's just.
I'm gonna say Darren's almost done.
Yeah.
Or Devri, sorry.
So, yeah, the next was just the, renewal Furbearer recommendations for 25-26. We're not recommending any changes for the current strategy other than date changes for the calendar. And for bobcats, it's allowing a maximum number of permits per individual, the most generous season dates. And no quota, no cap on take. So our bobcat numbers look good, so that's why we're
The questions for the RAC. All of my questions, bobcat numbers.
Yeah. Everything's within the management parameters, and so the plan says you recommend the most liberal or most generous ability to take. So that's what we're recommending.
How did they count bobcats? I know cougars and bears are all kind of same.
Yeah, none of them we count. So for bobcats, you're looking at the number of females in the harvest, whereas some others you're looking at adult survival, and then the number of kittens in the harvest. And so if the kittens in the harvest are high, and again, most of these are taken with traps. So kitten numbers are high, that indicates that reproduction is taking place. You want to have that certain parameter. Females in the harvest, you want that to be relatively low. I mean, there's a target bracket. And then adult survivors be above a certain point. So if all those line up, the plan says allow the top opportunity for trappers and hunters.
Any other questions from RAC? We'll take a question from the public on the side.
One person, was just neutral, but left no specific comments.
For the public comments. Right discussion. Entertain a motion. This is maybe a question again, but sure. You feel like in Utah, is there a number of trappers?
It's kind of a lot slower than it's been historically. It's, I want to say about 1,600 people for bobcats that get permits. And that's been fairly stable. It's probably slowly declining. Trappers, I think their ages tend to be progressing and not a lot of young folks are taking it up. But that's about where we are. It really, the biggest driver of the bobcat take is pelt price. So when pelts are worth a lot, you see a lot of take, and when they're not worth as much, people aren't quite. So that seems to be the primary thing.
How much conflict do you see with the traps and people's pets?
Yeah, so the Trappers Association, we've talked to them, and they're pretty sensitive. So they talk to their members, their newsletter about, hey, there's the law, and then let's not be stupid. So they try to avoid trapping in places where they might catch somebody's pet. That doesn't mean that everybody is a member of the Trappers Association or complies. So that it does happen. We don't get a lot of reports. What we tell folks is that, this is illegal activity. If you got your dog in the mountains, especially if you're in canyons where, these multiple uses are going on, keep them an eye on. You can't legally remove an animal from the trap. Your dog gets caught, you're legally get them out. Biggest concern is there's some traps that are designed to kill the animal. Usually those are, and we do have regulations to avoid people or pets getting caught in those. Usually those are sets that have to be underwater. They're set muskrat and beaver. And so, or they're in a cubby set, which is the deal. But it can be, and it's certainly a concern, but again, we don't get a lot of, it happens once in a while. Rarely, but that's
Your discussion item. Anything motion on this?
No, I've had two instances recently with traps. So like one of my friends, her dog almost died in the trap. And then I was running in a canyon recently and there was a mountain lion or a bobcat trapped and my dog was there and there was big conflict and it is kind of, I don't know, the more like I do a lot of running in these canyons and the more like I worry about running into these kind of incidents and the more traps that are out there, the more concerned I am. Especially people are, the high price for those pelts. It's something I think about and I know other, my friends and the other non-consumptive users, that is a big concern for us.
So I had a dog in a foot trap just 2 weeks ago. I had Mr. Morgan Larson himself come out and deal, and the guy had it right next to the road, right where everyone travels. But luckily, no dog got hurt or nothing, but just swollen foot for a couple days. But that even opens back up when a lion's done with, but it opens up even more for that too. It's a bigger trap.
My dad too. My son with my dad when I have.
That's why I've had a couple get caught in snares before. It's not very fun.
Any other discussion? Any motions today?
I'll make a motion to accept the rental.
I'll second the motion. All in favor? Anything on that stuff?
I just don't like the increase. Bobcats.
Go ahead and take a how long break? 5 minutes. 5 minute break. Next.
One.
All right, welcome back. We are on agenda item number 10. If Devri being patient, every channel will put whatever I planning rule amendments.
I don't have any clarifications or questions.
Hey guys, just make sure you're talking loud because it is so hard to hear. Hey, you guys.
Any questions on the plan?
I just had a few questions. Did you guys consider maybe using this tool as a more targeted approach rather than this regional habitat in general? Maybe targeting areas where we want to reduce coyote populations to help fawn survival.
Yeah, so
That I mean, I know you want to do it across the state, but maybe there's units or areas that are more imperiled than others.
yeah, so this rule we're addressing it also, there's a general predator control program and then there's also a targeted predator control program. And the targeted one is where we contract with like UDAC, Utah Department of Agriculture, to target specific Cougar units that individuals who use extra predator control. So we do have targeted approach, obviously cost more because of the equipment and the helicopters, thermal and whatnot. But we do have both sides. The general one we're trying to make more targeted while still letting it be accessible, which is why we're targeting the crucial and qualifying statewide. We want to increase the big family, hopefully help the general public also be a little bit more targeted.
Okay. So I know like the non-habitat areas where coyotes are source populations.
Yeah, so you guys can discuss.
Just like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, you guys can discuss specific amounts. We decided to keep $50 statewide and do 75 in crucial so that we wouldn't necessarily increase fraud, but we would try to incentivize the targeted areas. Yeah, and there is, coyotes do move, but once they've kind of settled, they are territorial and can take about 6 months after you kill one of those territorial coyotes. So the idea is to have targeted areas, but also if you're hunting the same areas over time, it can help on survival. There's a figure by Brock and others to show that it's targeted vertical over time really does help on survival. So that's kind of what we're trying to get out with as much as you can with the general bounty program.
Yeah, because I was just thinking, it's kind of maybe washed out a little bit because of the whole state. There's like, you're putting in a certain area because I think there are some studies and one recent one that came out like states like Labrador where they look where it can, hunting regulations maybe don't limit coyote abundance and can like that. But targeted areas, it can help for time, depending however long you're implementing.
Yeah, so there is research definitely on both sides. So, yeah, that paper was mentioning that hunting, it had different metrics and it seemed more obscured about the kind of data. There weren't very many representative class sides. So it is important to think about sensory reproduction and both sides of the issue in terms of how coyotes reproduce and move about the landscape. So yeah, it's important for the RAC to consider both sides and just remember Brock's paper and the combination of these other papers.
So the bounty program's been in place, there hasn't been an explosion of coyotes out there.
Not that I am aware of. We saw a lot of coyote take at the beginning of the program, and it has dropped off in recent years. And whether that's because we decreased the coyote population or because people are less aware or less incentivized to participate, it's hard to tell.
Did that drop though? Was that drop in the number? Wasn't it?
Yeah, so it also coincides, the big drop happened about 2019, 2020, and we did implement the app in 2018 to have people submit their coyotes using, there was initially an app put out by the division, but we have since changed it to a more, an easier app to use. So a lot of people struggle with that.
So was a bad reduction or fraud going on because that you were catching, you caught, I guess. I was looking at the numbers you had, you were bumping up to your limit. on the incentive compensation we could provide, right? So then they have to get out and you drop to where you drop around them. Well, yeah, coyotes maybe. So maybe a lot of that is people bringing coyotes from other places. We're catching them.
We did have
bad
a
actors.
couple large cases early on that before Devri was hired, obviously, they were charged as felonies, because they defrauded. So there was a little bit of that. That was definitely cooling on the general. You know, the people were trying to defraud the state. They saw some folks get sent to jail. That was chilling. And then the app, for a couple things. One is made it a little bit harder to move coyotes from happy. Actually where it was. And when I talked to Trent, there's some anecdotal stuff. So there's a little bit of the, the app. Some people just don't want to follow something. And then health rights too. Had a health rights totally off over recent years. So just haven't. So, and we've also had some small game, some issues with our small game populations that they've been on a decline. And so generally coyotes will flag, follow those trends. So it could be a lot of moving parts.
How do you reconcile like the potential increase in human pressure in these crucial areas where we are potentially the most stressed? It's the most important.
From what I've heard, a lot of people talk about the difficulty of accessing those areas during, because a lot of people want the coyotes when there's prime belt in December, February, and it's difficult to access high mountain ranges when there's all that snow. So I don't anticipate flooding of areas for coyotes. It's possible, but I don't think it's practical based on the feedback that we've been getting on us.
Give me information about, from surveying people who want coyotes, if $25 more will make a difference. I know it's more money, so it's maybe a little, but any data to support this increase that would actually increase in coyote take?
I, just speaking from stories where I've checked in coyotes for different people, they are interested if there's a higher bounty amount for areas. We haven't done a survey. I've been wanting to compile some sort of survey to send out to the crafters and the different people participating, but we haven't done that yet.
Just talking, maybe explain the checking process now. I mean, how much maintenance there I need with this as well, but you just kind of talk about that.
Yeah, so currently, in order to check in on coyote, when you first take it, you have to take a picture of it using our app, the Survey 123 Coyote App Recorder, and that'll take the location and the time that you take it, and you can see that on our end. And so from that point, the person will call typically the region or the specific biologist, their numbers, and the phone numbers are next to the check-in locations and times that we have across the state, and you can set a certain appointment. At that appointment, you'll bring the coyote. Currently is that coyote scalp with the ears attached and the lower jaw. And we have to number that based on the time you took it so that we can associate that coyote location with the tooth that we take for age data so that we can say this age is in this region or this specific area. And so at check-in, we snip the ears and we pull the tooth. And then the hunter is responsible for disposing of the rest of it. And so with this recommendation, we're proposing to remove the ear and scalp requirement because people have expressed concerns about if they want to do something with the coyote pelt, they'd like to maintain the ears and not have a slippery one. And in order to prevent duplicate entries or duplicate check-ins, we're going to suggest you pull either both of the premolar teeth or you keep the entire jaw. So we'll still be making sure that coyotes aren't submitted twice. We'll just use a different method than clipping ears.
There's still a physical check-in with the app.
Yeah, so we check the app and the picture. That's why we like appointments to be set up so we just look it up ahead of time, help people troubleshoot. If we don't see their data submitted, we can help them walk through the app and figure things out that way. And also check that the pictures are fully matching the coyote. Yeah, so with this, And that's currently what we have for bobcats is the jaw submissions. We think it would be, you can, coyotes only have one jaw, so we think it's a good, it'll still work to have physical proof of the coyote.
Watching one of the other racks, they did talk about increase in the amount to $100 in the control. And what's the other classification for
Substantial is good.
yeah. And you guys showed, I think, who's running the numbers are on it live for them, so that he still wouldn't be done now.
Yeah, so we did that at the northern region, running through the numbers, and based on the past 3 or 4 years of data, which is when we have the accurate location data from the app and everything, showing where crucial substantial take was, it would be within the funding budget. And then since then, we've had some discussions with our director's office and everything, and we would recommend if you do want to increase the bounty to 100, maybe this time around, keep it to the crucial area, keep it targeted, and to stay within budget. And also, we can monitor this over the next year, and if you would like, we can come back again next year and see if we stay within our budget, if we have room to increase more areas or increase higher. But to stay for this first time, if you do want to increase it, stick to 100 within crucial, and just see where it goes from there. And that's because we also hope this will bring in a lot more people. If it'll remind people that the program exists, there's a lot of factors that we want to be able to prepare. We want to prepare for as much as we can, but there's sometimes.
Any other questions? Yeah. So if there are any comments, we'll go to questions for the public.
One person was strongly agreed with the proposal.
Any public comments of bid and parts? Go ahead and move to RAC discussion.
Person would like to see this move it to $100. Like that's better. Well, and then where we're at in there.
Imagine this coming through and that'll spark some more interest. Definitely some offers suggested by artists.
I have a couple thoughts. One is, we're killing coyotes in areas that aren't choking anything quite so there's that, but then I see that maybe they even are helping. We just don't know. Either way, don't really know. So, and I worry a little bit about how much more will there be more fraud or take advantage of the system. So then this is another thing where the legislature came by and said we know more than everybody else. Happened 10 years ago with coyotes. I think it's probably the first thing, and then now we got coyotes or lions is kind of what happens. So
God, it's required to current system we have now. I've used the app. It's try to be there and take the document each broad aspect is what part of that.
I don't know this proposals, have that. I got a lot of area that's small. Have that, about that, or statewide, see, I know a lot of guys advise this program with the hassle. Maybe
So. I like the idea of increasing. Around that.
I also live in the non-coastal habitat, so one thing I noticed personally is the animal population. 10 years. Sadness created a lot of that. So even though these guys would feel good, like benefiting from that as well.
A lot of factors in predator control. One of them we don't talk about a lot is sage grouse. Sage grouse listed as certainly endangered. And sage grouse are very subject to predators, coyotes, bobcats, all of them. A good study out of Idaho now that shows a lot of the predation on sage grouse. Sage grouse affects us a lot here. Yes. Then there's a good study out of Idaho now that shows the number one factor in sage grouse numbers is predation from prey birds, predator birds, I should say. And so one thing when we're thinking about these predators, there's triggers in the sage grouse management plan. If they go below a certain number, it triggers certain. And those certain things we don't want to trigger because it affects all the parents. So some of these we need to think sometimes too on what will happen if our predator population gets too high and triggers these mechanisms already built in by the U.S. wildlife. So what will happen if some of these species that are listed on the endangered or threatened, if they drop below a certain level. If in this country, we would see everything on the. So we've got to be really, really trying to give opportunities for everybody, but understand there's a lot of factors that go into it, not just opportunities. There's things out of our control. That's what happens if you don't.
Curious why we didn't like put a time frame for fawning, you know? Would it be better to have this bounty be higher during the fawning season? Because correct me if I'm wrong, but that would be what we're trying to get at with this measure, right? Is to reduce fawn mortality.
Yeah, so in our coyote training, we suggest December to June as the ideal take timeframe. When you kill a coyote, you have 365 days to submit that coyote for bounty. And so it's a little difficult to require a certain time frame given such a long time to turn it in. But it does take about 6 months for new coyotes to repopulate areas that you killed a coyote. So within that roughly December to June timeframe, if you kill a coyote, it should take it during times that would help the fawning. So we recommend a time frame, but yeah, the check-in time is earlier.
So doesn't that have a timestamp when they take a picture?
Yeah, so it does. So you can discuss, we're not really suggesting doing it at a certain time, but that's something we'd like to discuss.
So you can still turn it in later, but it would have a timestamp, so you can build it in that time. To increase the volume a little bit. Yeah, while they turn it in.
That's true. The paper that Rock wrote in a couple of years ago on the Mountain area did mention that since coyotes are territorial, it doesn't really matter what time you kill them during the year as long as you're repeatedly killing them in the same areas. Because it's still in that fawning area. And so, yeah, as long as it's targeted over time, the timing that you take, it doesn't really matter because of even when you kill the coyotes in the fawning areas, younger ones come in and the young ones are typically easier to kill anyway. So those are just
I think that the science behind managing coyotes is we mentioned a couple times, but it's targeted and intense. I think putting a timeline on it, something I would support. But that's how to address this issue, in my opinion. If that's what I want to know. Express that. Targeted and intense. So support parts of this proposal were, combining both hunters and professionals to deal with this. Targeting and intense, that's what the science supports. Throwing more money at it, I'm not opposed to it, but I don't see that as necessarily solving the problem. Let's deal with it.
Maybe I'm just kind of out of the circle, but I feel like for a time there was also a spike of biopollen contests and things that local markets. In terms of popularity, I know it went really high in terms of biopollen and all that. I don't know if it's like trending down, but I also haven't necessarily seen a lot of contests. Have you maybe actually like there? Is there that?
So the state, the Division of Wildlife doesn't like condone or encourage coyote flying contests. In the past, there's been people there for checking just to make sure that if coyotes are submitted to the bounty that they're still within the. But we don't like promote or encourage any sort of flying contests.
You could still hold on though. I just feel like I don't hear about it.
Yeah, we don't monitor that coyotes. They're technically not even managed by us. So we don't. All we would know is probably what you know. There's some local ones and they haven't been any lately. We just would hear it through the grapevine. We used to send folks, like Devri said, just to, because these guys live everywhere. They go out of state. And I don't think we've done that recently, but we don't always know. They don't have to contact us or register with us, let us know they're going to do that. So they could be going on.
Just kind of bring that up. It just seems like I haven't seen them as often.
They've definitely died down a lot past 5 years.
Even in Utah. Oh, there was a heyday. Discussion. I'd entertain a motion.
So targeted and intense. We want to like get raging in July or something. $100 and 75. Coastal range. 50 others. Regulations. Is that something?
I personally think it's keep it kind of simple and just do the target and keep people going. And not what coyotes are there for the whole year anyway.
I think Natasha already mentioned that the tool is already in place with the app. So if you have to use the app, there's a timestamp. So the work's already done to put a time frame.
Yeah, and we're talking about like a pretty short generation time too, right? I think you said 6 months.
Yeah.
To repopulate, so.
And it's true, they're younger and stupider and easier to kill, but they're still there. So I just think that the tool's already in place to potentially put a time frame on there to make it the reward higher for people who are trying to help achieve this goal. So I think if you want to think about the science that supports, these choices, that's what the science supports. And can the money be then used to have professionals come in and assist? I'm not sure if we can
So I believe there's a cap as far as the state only allocates a certain amount for this program. And so I think we'd want maybe be a little bit, maybe even adjust that, maybe be a little bit careful of raising that down real high because I think you would run out of money.
So there's $250,000 under Department of General Fund that's earmarked for Coyote bounty program. And there's separate money that's used for the targeted control that's done by UNAS that I mentioned. So the bounty money is specifically earmarked for this program and wouldn't overlap.
But you're right, Richie, we want to be careful going into this, because there's some unknowns, so we prefer to, there's nothing magic about the numbers. Keep it at 100, and then kind of see how that goes, that'd be good. We could manage for a time, if the RAC wants to do that, we've got all the data, we can certainly do that, so, feel free to recommend to the board what they want to do with the RAC.
I can ask one question too, but those targeted efforts are hopefully to take place during those funding timeframes, and then when do those usually take place? Will the 265 year or is that how that?
It usually happens, I believe, in the early spring.
It's winter, so it used to be driven by conditions. UDAP has recently started using thermal optics, and so they're, it's cold, they can go just about any time, but it's during the winter time on fawning areas. So we designate exactly, we put polygons on the map, say, here's where we want you to go. So there's this targeted intent effort that's going on top of sort of a general bounty. The recommendation today we might be able to target some more bounty take to those areas, but still in a little bit more general way, and then we still have this targeted program that's on. So that's honestly, that's probably the biggest bang for your buck. You're going to spend $1 on coyote control. It's from the air with professionals, and this is a way for the public to just
The access issues.
kind of a force multiplier. Right.
So I don't want to keep us here all night, but I think it'd be pretty valuable, this conversation with Danny here. So to explain how UDAP funds the predator control, I know if I donate a certain amount of money to that predator control, it gets matched twice. So the Cattlemen's Association, we're going to give UDAP so much money, predator control, and then it gets matched. And so that's how we, in the Department of Agriculture, get money to fly coyotes and those kind of things. But if you want, Danny can explain it better.
I don't know if I can explain it much better than what you just did. I mean, basically, for a landowner or a livestock owner, that's what happens with what Rich just said. But the division gives us.
Yeah, so the legislature put a $5 fee or $5 enhancement on big game permits, and that money all goes into a fund as well. So that's the money we spend with UDAP to do this targeted program. And then the bounty program is different. That's general fund that's allocated to us. And it just comes in a block of tax dollars that we get, and then we allocate those to budgets. So you've been authorized to spend at the moment up to 250,000 of that for pay bounties. But then, yeah, UDAP uses, when they're doing producer control, they use head tax funds, and then they have money in their budget. And when they're working for us, we pay them the 15 fee. And we also use that money to pay, we've got a predator specialist in each region that helps implement the bounty program, so they get paid out of that. Maybe that's too far in the weeds, but I feel bad for Rusty. Wait for his turn, but yeah, just to clarify, that's kind of how the money goes out.
One other thing too is ranchers, for every cow we sell, we pay 25 cents into the predator control program, and the state collects that money. So when they do a brand inspection, when we sell cattle, 25% or 25 cents per animal gets charged and gets collected and goes to the state predator control. It's earmarked right on the back. So 700 some thousand head of cattle, I think, in Utah. So you sell roughly 700,000 head of cattle in Utah, times that by 25 cents. You know what's going into that for the
Is there a motion?
Okay. I'm gonna make a motion here. Okay. I'd like to make a motion to target the fawning season. So that could be May, June, July, all there, March, I don't know. That is better. Yeah, for like when you, I know winter for the bears are for, but
Suggest, December to June. You could say it's worth more during those. It's a suggestion and you'll get paid more. If that helps.
yeah, okay, we can do that. Let's do, yeah, targeted and crucial habitat from December to June, $100 bounty. And 50 still in the other areas. And then after that, after June, maybe 75, back to 75, or do you want to just? I'm like struggling here, but or back to 75, but like incentivizing that, you know, crucial timing in crucial habitat, basically.
You're saying $100 in the crucial habitat from December to June.
Yes.
$75 for the rest of the year for crucial habitat.
Crucial habitat and 50 for the rest, yes. And then the use of the app, it'll be time, the pictures will be timestamped so they can verify what time. So, I mean,
I second that motion.
So then.
No.
Did you get the job? I need to do balance.
Oh, that's
The
right, the
balance.
rest of the, so that's just.
Be the job.
Yeah.
Make a motion.
I was making a motion to, accept the full rest.
There's a motion to accept this. Full last, then it's right, Jake, the second.
I'll second it.
I'd vote. All right. Bonks and Rusty. I'll sit down together. It's all right. So any clarification you'd like, Chris?
Yeah, maybe I could just add a little background context to this proposal. We formed a shed antler gathering committee about a year ago and came up with a set of recommendations. We took around last spring, and one of those recommendations was to establish a non-resident shed hunting season that would begin on May 1st. But we're recommending a resident shed hunting season. So with all those recommendations, the board approved all of them with the exception of that non-resident season, and then encouraged the division to reconvene the shed antler gathering committee with the preference of establishing matching season dates so that we're, I guess, in a spirit of fairness to non-residents. And so we did that. We reconvened the committee. There's a lot of discussion around that non-resident season strategy and what to do there. At the end of the day, we couldn't reach consensus on any particular strategy. The committee was adamant, felt very strongly to not recommend a resident season. We still wanted to have that open for residents, but couldn't agree on a non-resident strategy. So the division's recommendation is to not have a season for residents or non-residents at this time, and we'll continue to track non-resident shed hunting activity in the state. And we still have the emergency closure rules in place if we ever have really bad weather conditions. Shut it down entirely. So, but yeah, with that, I'm happy to answer the question. the track for non-resident? Or just shed hunting?
So when you, in order to shed hunt the state, you have to take the shed hunting ethics course. And with that, you enter your customer ID. And so you know exactly what it is. So we track, you know, resident and non-residents participating.
Questions from the audience?
So I'm only here and a half of what it said, but when you talked about the requirement for the ethics course, is that still up till May 1st or is that year out?
I think we put, and with the recommendation you took around last spring, I think we pushed it forward a little bit. So now it's January 1st. And I think it still ends on April 15th. Somebody maybe double check me on that.
That's correct.
On his nod your head, yes. So it's, if you're gonna shed hunt between January 1st and I believe April 15th, you need to have that ethics course certificate in the file.
Okay, that first time you thinking, I thought I heard you say something about it, had to have it. You know, that concerned me.
Daniel Davis has a question about the committee. Participating on committees, it's gonna be a messy deal. Could you share with us how the committee came to consensus with not having a supervisor on the everyone I know, every other state around us has it, so it's almost a fair play deal. How did the committee come up with a stance to not regulate non-residents like the rest of the states?
So our original recommendation a year ago was to have a non-resident season. And like I said, when we reconvened, we had pretty clear direction from the board in the spirit of fairness to not have mismatched seasons. That we should take the high road and treat non-residents fairly as we do, the same as we do residents. And so with that direction, there was still a lot of push in the committee to have some sort of non-resident season. And like I said, we just couldn't come to consensus on any one particular strategy. And so in an effort to, because there was a consensus, the board finally did, or the committee did finally come to consensus in the fact that basically what we came down to is we really don't want a resident season, and we would rather have no season for non-residents than to have any season for residents, if that makes sense. In other words, if we have to have them fair and matching, then we're willing to do that, but we really don't want a residence. And so, but you're right, there was a lot of members of the committee that still felt very strongly to have a non-resident season, and there was a lot of discussion.
There's times, and a lot of times where it's just one, or it's voted on multiple times.
Yes.
And
Yeah, so I think there were several reciprocity systems that were presented, and took several votes on that. Like, okay, there's 3 different reciprocity strategies been proposed. We want reciprocity or no, or not. And it failed by 1 vote, but then it just kept coming up, and it's like, okay, let's vote again, and it just kept coming up in favor.
So in our neighboring states, that's where the competition comes from. Do they have altered, like, separate start dates for residents and non-residents?
Wyoming does, yes. And that's the only one I'm aware of that has different season for non-residents.
I believe so.
Yes. Yeah, and so far, all of the surrounding states, it looks like Idaho is going to a season for everybody. And so if that happens, then Arizona would be the only bordering state without a season that these summer dogs. Thank you.
This one, first we saw this, they were neutral on the subject.
The comment was that they wanted to set a date for everyone like that.
We got discussions.
I'm very opposed to the season at all. People are shutting up, but actually think more pressure on animals. During the season, the open day scenario. Even if it is May 1st, they just coming out of one of the hardest points and never seen an elk ran to a dragon. During an open day scheduled season, there's people everywhere. And when I've been out and previous before that, you know, you might bump an elk or something, but they're not running. They got somewhere to go to get away. And then the people structure that stuff very opposed to it.
Or those goose traps and it's already gone.
Yeah, so that's the other.
All the guys are.
That's the other reason I hate people. I actually really liked the original proposal, but if they don't, if the board didn't want to do a split with non-residents to residents, I'd side with the committee.
I share the same feelings with Jake. Either season or not, strict for both residents and non-residents.
I was on the committee, and so there was a lot of discussion about every possibility, and that last discussion was, I mean, 5 different ideas presented. And so, yeah, we're not gonna have a season at all for anybody, you know, and just like, you know, there are other users on the landscape as well, not the shed hunters. So it's possible for those people, you know, they're hopefully they don't, but you know, it's, yeah, right now that's where it settles, and maybe if there's more, right now the data doesn't support that shed hunters are pushing around campus. The data doesn't show that, and we have a ton of caller data right now. However, it could change maybe in the future, and then we revisit that, but at this point, it's weird for the next in the end.
I'd be curious, like, how many non-resident shed hunters are there? Do you know?
Yeah, that's a great question. We pulled numbers since 2009. In 2009, we had almost 1,100 non-resident shed hunters. In 2024, we were at 1,446.
Like percentage is that?
It's about, look year to year, it's about 10%. Report last. So 2024, we had 16,000 residents and 1,400 non-residents, which is really similar to the numbers we had in 2016. So the numbers actually haven't. 2020 was an anomaly where everybody was outside, and gone up a little bit. It actually seems like we're trending down a moment for at least for non-residents.
Kind of died off the shed antler. Great, just kind of died off a little.
Make a motion. To support the, shed antler hunting recommendations of the
I'll second that motion. Natasha, Adam.
Motion to set the shed antler gathering recommendation. Votes, those in favor? Awesome. Okay, thank you, Rusty.
Thank you.
Turn time over to Jason. Jason.
JC.
Well, I think, the presentation covered much everything. Answer question?
Departments for questions. For the West Desert Complex here.
Yeah. Questions. Which I'm reading things right. So you're proposing to increase the elk objective number by roughly 700?
For the entire complex, it'll be an increase of 150 in the West Desert, but on one of the units, there'll be an increase. So we're decreasing one of the units, increasing another one by about 500.
And on your objective.
Keep them the same.
I thought it was 1,000.
No, so we used to break it up into unit 18 and 19. And what the proposal is to have it combine those two units into a bigger area complex with 4 individual units. And so the overall objective of the area would remain the same, but we would just reallocate those based on the new values. Yeah, it'd be pretty tough out there. So keep it the same.
Any questions from the public? Public comments.
One person and they somewhat disagreed on.
No public comments. Move to RAC discussion.
Questions on this? What's your deer population on the combined units?
Decreasing, same. So we had bad drought years, and desert deer are more affected by drought than heavy burns. So we had 2 really bad drought years that were really hard on those deer, and then we've had the 2 wet years last 2 years. It's helped them recover. So overall, we're almost across the board. We're slightly below those objectives, mostly from the drought. We're kind of a recovery phase with the last 2 years.
That's fire. Are they receiving?
Yep, almost always we go back in and rehab those areas.
Kind of really to us, your biologist. How have you seen predation in life for you? What are the deer struggling with there?
Rain is by far and away the number one. The drought years were very, very hard on most desert deer. We just saw it's a little bit summer range limited, so those deer just don't put on the fat they need to. But very healthy fawns. So that's probably our number one factor. Then it trickles down. With like predation, the mountain lions are pretty prevalent out there. As was talked about with coyotes, we saw a real drastic decline in our rabbit numbers, and that really affected the coyote numbers as well. So that may be a contributing. That West Desert area, there's a lot of coyotes in that area. And when the rabbits really tanked, there's the word I would probably use, they went really low. The coyote numbers dropped significantly in my area as well. And we're now seeing, again, both of those are starting to recover. So when it comes to deer, drought, and then probably a distant second is predation with lions.
Proposal just for the last where you talked about how the deer they stay in that sub unit or not the right word, but over 10 tick deer, over 10 tick deer, and not.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, with the advancements in technology, GPS, we've collared a lot of deer in that area. And it was just one of those things like, we didn't have that information when we drew boundaries. We do now, and it made a lot of sense to redraw those now that we have clearly identified a major migration area that contributes to that.
The area you're proposing to increase dog numbers 500 here, what area is that?
It's called, proposing called the House Tinnick. So it's the House mountain range and the Tinnick. So there's east and west Tinnick, sheetrock. It's a very gigantic area with a lot of juniper habitat, and collared some elk with GPS units and identified that they're using a lot of that juniper grassland habitat. And there's a lot of it out that area. So we realized that was a habitat type that they used quite a bit. It really opened up a lot of available habitat and
range condition reports.
Not good. It's tough country out there.
They're all great.
And to, I guess to be fair, a lot of those range trains are set up mostly looking at mule deer habitat, not specifically for elk. But there are some benefits. And I think what we're looking at is just the sheer area. It's a very huge, thousands and thousands of square miles. So when we looked at the vegetation on the vegetation for elk, we felt like it would easily hold that this area. And that's considering cattle and other grazing.
I mean, elk are in that.
Roughly 150 for this area. And we hunt them very, very hard to keep it at that level. We harvest almost half of the population each year. It's an area that the population really wants to live in. We did suppress it.
We'll have to tag that help grow a little bit for a couple of years. Where you want to be.
Definitely.
For the elk, this will, I shouldn't know this, but is that in the general table?
Yes. Just about the entire complex is minus the Deep Creek range, which is still. Any other discussion?
Support the proposal as proposed, West End complex, other than instead of raising the objective by 500, while range conditions are grading as 4 higher, if they only increase those up. That's range conditions. The reason behind that is I guarantee you cattle numbers or sheep numbers are this. We never get an increase when the range conditions score 4. Our desert country that we're wintering on for cattle, I didn't go out with my full numbers and allowed to. Matter of fact, I just pulled 2 more semi-loads off because the BLM didn't tell them that. They don't need to tell me. Just know what they know. Let's try it. And so I don't know that it's quite the right perception to say our conditions are poor fair, but we're going to increase by 5 times the number. No one else does. Matter of fact, they take deductions. And so, if the area, if there's more room for elk, that's fine. I just don't think we need to jump to 5 times the number they have now, 4 times the number they have now. until we see conditions. That's fair.
I'm sure there's allocated acres for wildlife and things up there. That's maybe what you're also basing it off of.
And one other note, those conditions were read during the drought years. So those are conditions have improved since we collected that. So we have a 5-year cycle for our range strength curve. So those data were taken during those severe drought years. So just something to consider in the process.
Yeah, I'm finding it's an increase. I just don't.
If I could reiterate your motion, that would be to support the proposal as presented, but only increase by 250 instead of
250 on the objective.
Does that number really didn't matter, 250 versus 500? Is that
there's a second on that motion.
You guys don't feel like there's any issue with the range? That's populated close to 600. It's fine. That wouldn't affect the cattle.
Yeah, we felt like that we could handle this many elk as well as the cattle that are currently there. We had a committee we put together that had both representatives of Forest Service and private Farm Bureau and a couple of the larger landowners in the area, and they were all supportive of this.
Any other discussion on that motion? For a second. Keep it open for a motion for the.
I make a motion to accept the division proposal as it's presented.
Second part. Dave can accept the division's proposal as presented. Take a vote in favor. And for the reason one other thought on that, though, I just asked, like, they'll aren't gonna jump to that right now either, right? Or how fast do you expect them to grow? If you just get that there?
We don't want them to jump 500, and they couldn't currently just with population size it is. We'll continue to have cow hunts in place, so private lands only, cattle hunt, draw hunt as well. So we do want to grow it over the course of 4 or 5 years, just to kind of keep an eye on it, make sure they're not in trouble and doing things about it.
I know that's something you can keep an eye on it, and you're not, if you're bringing a couple semi loads down here, right? So I believe that is the last of our agenda items. So
That's good.
Well,